Oh, did it make a button? It pressed a button. Are we recording? We are recording. Sorry, it usually makes a button and says something. Sorry for this rough start. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Aurora. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. And today it is level 1, lesson 9. One of the most important lessons all about DNA and the flying rainbow lasagna. So real meat and potatoes here today of how exactly the flying rainbow lasagna, let's grab that shape, how exactly this relates to your DNA. So as I was preparing my notes for this today, and as I was thinking about what I wanted to say to you, one of the key points that I would like to make is the causality. Like, what does what? What makes what happen? And also, I love my stylist so much because I just touched the thing and I didn't get my mind wiped. What makes what happen? So in this materialistic world, people look at DNA as very much the driver or the inceptor and creator of different reality structures or physical anatomical structures. And it's easy or reductionist to think in the same way that first you change your DNA and you have an ordinarily torus or toroidal or donut-shaped energy force field. And then just through like magically waving your magic wand and changing your DNA, you will necessarily change your force field into a flying rainbow lasagna shape. And I think that that's maybe a little bit backwards. When I say reductionist, there's definitely this tendency in the world right now to look at DNA as if it is something that makes things happen. I hesitated to say that because it does make things happen. It is the recipe that creates reality. But it's not that easy to just say you're going to create reality or change or shift reality just by rewriting DNA. So I have so many different things that I want to go over from my notes here today, but one of the main things I want to, of course, make a distinction is between myself and my view of what DNA is and how I'm even using it as a didactic tool and a bridge for your mind to really be able to comprehend something that is incomprehensible. But I don't want you to fall into the mind or ego traps that derive from the world that you come from that are erroneous and often malevolent presumptions about reality, especially as it relates to DNA. So some things are misnomers or misconceptions in the world that are innocent about what is DNA. Like, you're humans, you're just learning, and I'm here to help. But also, there's a lot right now of evil, very malevolent agendae that are revolving around DNA, almost in a sense of in recognizing how sacred and important and primary and I don't even have better words for it, but how incredibly valuable and what a treasure DNA is, that there are some very benighted mentalities in the world who would be like, well, okay, then that's what we want to mess up or dilute or degrade or harm in some way. So I don't want to give information to those people. So I don't teach to those people. I never really have. And then also, you are the good people in this class. I'm not worried about you being mad scientists and trying to do something. But what I'm speaking about specifically is, before when I wrote this class, like the curriculum, so this is like 13 years or so ago, I don't think that it was even a possible or available, this sense of genetic modification and the sense of taking a physical apparatus like a gene splicing machine and snipping something out from over here, carrying it over here, and inserting it over here, and then enzyming it into place, like spackling it into place, and then creating whatever, either a new characteristic or maybe even a whole new organism. So it's important for you to know that there is not a way for you to do that and try to make you or anyone else or anything flying rainbow lasagna. Like, that is not how flying rainbow lasagna is made. And also, I hope that my face and everything about me shows that that is like bizarre, wrong, not tasty, totally undelicious, again, wrong, like don't do it, and so many other things that I would like to portray on this that so collect myself to be able to even articulate here. That is not good music. So putting together these randomly selected genetic splices is really the antithesis of good biological music or good consciousness music. And a little bit of the cat walking on the piano and randomness or atonality can be accommodated as you're in your learning processes, but it's gone way too far. And it also, like I said, is emanating from an inner malevolence where it's not even just that someone might be motivated to, for example, explore, let me hydrate here, explore the structure of reality or explore how organisms function or how biological organisms function. This is really a malevolence to say, I recognize how the evil one is saying, I recognize how these things work and I'm doing it wrong on purpose. I'm messing stuff up on purpose. I'm trying to destroy life on purpose or diminish life's expression on purpose or to make a mess of life and of time dynamics on purpose. So patience, there's no more patience. There's no more opportunity to supposedly benevolently but devastatingly just explore around on these levels and make so much harm because DNA is not like your private sandbox to play around in. And it is a conveyor of intelligence and consciousness that is interconnected throughout time and dimensionality. So, as I always tell you, in your mind, you are not swimming around in your own private kiddie pool. In the same exact way, what you do with your DNA is not just about you. And if you create a DNA-bearing organism, it's not just about that little organism. All DNA everywhere is connected and interconnected and reciprocally, I don't want to say responsible, but has impact upon one another. And because you get into real levels that might liquefy your brains on the anthropomorphic human level of personal responsibility. If I say all DNA is reciprocal, all DNA is connected and all DNA is reciprocal and responsible to each other, then you're like, okay, great. I'm responsible to that butterfly and that butterfly is responsible to me. And I'm responsible to like that horrible axe murderer or uneducated idiot. And then that uneducated idiot is responsible to me. Like there's a lot of asymmetry when you start to really examine the truthfulness of that statement. So I would say that in a pristine system, you are responsible to all the life around you and all the DNA around you, and you are connected to all that DNA, and you should act as if it is expressions of the externalization of the internal self. But you're not in a pristine system. You're in a world where you have things that would be considered cancerous or pathogenic. So consider that as a direct analogy. Like if you were in a healthy body, you would be one little cell, and then you would be, and your epidermis is like your cell membrane, and you would be like, I am one cell, but I see that I'm surrounded by so many other individual cells, and I know that we are all connected together and responsible to each other because we're all a part of something bigger. And we all believe in that. And maybe that something bigger is a person named Aurora, right? And so all the cells are acting together. This is a pristine system. But then let's talk about a non-pristine system. This is a person who's not named Aurora. And in that non-pristine system, there are some cells that are like, we love person A. We live inside of this person. But then there are some cells that are like, I joke about this all the time. I'm looking out for number one. I don't care about you, and I only care about me. And those cells are called either pathogens or cancer cells. Pathogens would be an invader. That's someone else, like from another world, from another country, from another galaxy, that comes into a particular body and then says, I don't work for the body, I just work for me. I don't care about any of you losers. I'm just here to take stuff and be a parasite, right? Then there are some cells of the original body. This is much more troubling and much more relatable to your ongoing experience and expression in the planet. Some original cells from this body or from this world who then somehow become traitors or betrayers and turn against the ideals of mutual reciprocity within this biological system, decide to only relate to themselves, only care for themselves, only prioritize their own needs above the system that they live within. And in a human body, when something does this, that's called a cancerous cell. And if you get enough of that, you die. And in your world, you've been teetering as a culture perilously on the self-service and malevolence of large swaths of the population. Of course, in a body, in person X's body, the whatever, you get five cancerous cells, you're not going to die from that. Your body's immune system will come along and be like, hey, you are all acting badly. You're taking an enormous amount of resources, pooping out lots of pathogenic, whatever, bad pollution, and harming the rest of us. So I'm gonna kill you. I'm a white blood cell. I'm gonna effing kill you and get you out of the system. However, in a very sick, diseased body, might have whatever, 80% of the cells have gone awry, and the white blood cells are running around and they're like, it's too many, I don't know what to do. And also, the cancerous cells have an attitude that's like this. We're in charge now. We have become the majority. You sensible people who work together and try to create life, you nonsense people are now in the small, perilously endangered minority, and we, the cancerous cells, are now in the majority, and we're going to eat, drink, and be merry, and just destroy, burn this whole thing to the ground. This is what you're seeing in the world right now. You have whatever, 75 or 80% of the population of humans are acting pathogenically. They're acting as badly as cancer cells in the body. They are acting in a way that shows that they are disconnected from divine thought and divine motivation, but also disconnected from what would be considered simple, sensible, rational self-preservation, which is preserve the body. It's like if you're on a ship, you are literally effing insane. If you're like a termite who's eating away at the wood of the ship, they're like, if you do this, at a certain point, there is no more ship and you will die. And this is what is going on, because in this world right now, what people don't comprehend is that DNA is innately and directly connected to time, and that there is not a way to mess with DNA and not be somehow messing with or distorting or diminishing the full expression of time. And time is, to the human and materialistic mind, already an ineffability, like something that's invisible, something that's hard to comprehend, something that is obtuse or abstruse. And you're like, what the heck is this thing? And why should I even care about it? Well, it's like the ship that you're in. It's time. It's the vessel that's carrying you along, or the medium through which you are flowing. Like, it's important for you to keep it viable and not to destroy it. So it also is acceptable for the fabric of time itself to say if something, an organism or an organization or a behavior pattern has become too pathogenic, to say, you're too effed up to even be inside of me, I destroy you. Or I say, get out, and that's it. Because if I'm time, I get to act in that way and speak these truths. It's like, I am Aurora, I'm the queen of my castle. Wait. I'm the queen of my castle. And if I don't like what you're doing in my house, like, you can get out. Time is the same way. Time is an alive being or an alive animal. We live within its epidermis or within its boundaries. And if we act badly and like a pathogen that threatens to destroy its stick togetherness for the future, coherence for the future, then it will be like, get out and get out. I kick you out of the house. And that is part of what death is. Death as a boundary, polygonal boundary, like here's the edge of the polygon, but also a behavioral boundary. Like if you have, this is your area of time where you can't go, but also these are behavioral isms that you can't do. And if you do them, you will die. You'll go out of existence. And some of that has to do with the things that DNA is doing. So now I want to give you a whole teaching all about DNA, but I want to make sure that you know that I am very different from materialistic scientists and that I'm using the word DNA, the concept of DNA, all of this as a bridge. And it was a much larger gulf, bridging the gulf of understanding from 13 years ago. People were highly indoctrinated and much more respectful of the scientific worldview. The scientific worldview you should disrespect and you should throw it in the bin because it has failed you. The mRNA vaccines and other things that have been created in your world are an affront to the supposed scientific value system, which is about exploration, logic, and inner consistencies in exploring the world and developing a framework of comprehension about the world. And there's been no exploration, no framework of comprehension explored or developed, just a lot of random of just like throwing things at the wall and seeing what will stick. Just random, I keep using that word, or experimental or spontaneous jazz, which is great. If I'm a musician, I don't pretend to be a scientist. When I sit down at the piano, I'm like, I don't have to know what in the world I'm going to play. I am a jazz player. I just make stuff up. But that is why I'm a musician, not a scientist, because scientists in your world are supposed to be serious and accountable people who don't just make stuff up. So I'm going to speak a lot today. Of course, not from my original curriculum because this wasn't an issue or an invention then, but I'm going to speak a lot today about what are these mRNA injections. But first, we have to talk about what is RNA, and then first we have to talk about what is DNA. And so please just, my whole preface here is don't be too focused in science, the scientific vocabulary, or the supposedly scientific worldview because it has failed you. And it's on the way out now, even as we speak. So I used to spend so much time, this thing is heavy on my neck. I used to spend so much time trying to integrate my stuff into your pre-existing stuff. But now I'm like, just throw out your pre-existing stuff. And then hopefully you can just hear Flying Rainbow Lasagna, DNA stuff through a filter of clarity. Okay, because when I first came here, I did not know anything about DNA, but I am an expert at it. So a better way of saying it, it's like saying, I am an expert at making music, but I did not know your musical notation of this world. Looking at DNA and naming it after the 4 basic proteins and describing it as a molecular structure is inherent to the behavioral concept structure of this world, but I definitely know about it as a tool of pure light. Okay, so let's talk about it in that sense. So in this world and the way that you were taught, probably in your science class in high school, you were taught that DNA is an X or a Y-shaped chromosome and probably shown a picture of it that is a static image that gave you a conception of it as being like, again, like a very limited thing that is static and that is not moving. So I have to like already magic eraser, erase all that away and get you over to the sense of DNA is not always shaped like an X or a Y, and it's not even always shaped like like a squiggly sine wave. And it is always moving. So I put down my stuff so that I could do my gesture because I'm going to teach you all about the Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance. When I do my dance or when I move my hands like this, what I am approximating is what the DNA looks like when it's doing its dance. So the DNA is a vibrating string, analogous to any vibrating string of a musical instrument. That would be like a guitar or a piano, or I don't know, think some a violin, something like that. So you do have these long fibers that are at the center of each one of your cells. And the vibration of these fibers does change, and it changes in response to various aspects of your environment, but it also changes in response to your inner environment. And last week and the week before, I did lots of teaching all about defining the inner and the outer, the analogy of the little ant on the inside of the bubble of the surface of time and on the outside of the bubble of the surface of time, and the flying rainbow lasagna as an energetic tool, this higher dimensional hyperspace oscillation that lets the little ant on the inside talk to the little ant on the outside. And now we're getting to direct biomechanics of what this is, because you're creating a bridge with your DNA already through the inner expression of potential external physical characteristics and time edifices. So here's where I diverge from regular science, because regular science is like, DNA, this is the physical protein structure, recipe, or blueprint building blocks for your body, describing like, what color are your eyes? Like for how to have brown eyes, or whatever, how to have 5 fingers on a hand, or how to grow hair. These are the how-to manuals that are in the library of you. And when I do personal session work, I teach people all about this, how your DNA is really the most intimate and private and sacred part of your body. It is part of so the diversity of your DNA, it's totally unique to you, and it's diverse because it's part of the unhackability or self-encryption of the cosmic infrastructure. In exactly the same way that you all have a unique fingerprint, you have a unique genetic structure, and you also have a unique song, or a unique frequency, or a unique dance. And that is part of, again, when I say the complexity, uniqueness, diversity, it makes it much more difficult for a disease, a pathogen, or a hacker to figure out how to bypass your defenses, figure out how to get past your defenses and try to take you over. So an organism such as a potato or a banana, these are beautiful parts of the food world, but they propagate through cuttings, which is called cloning, as opposed to seeds. So there's zero genetic diversity. That means that when you have a field of potatoes, they're all the same. They are just different cuttings of the same plant spread out over the ground. And that means that if there is one particular type of virus or pathogen that comes in, it can wipe out the entire field because they don't have the capacity to fight against it, and everyone is the same. So it would be like saying if all humans had the same exact genetic makeup and there was some kind of whatever, like a cold or a flu that came through and it was deadly, and it didn't just kill one person, it killed everybody. So you exist in this world right now, even in the sense of the success of the future, to have genetic diversity in case there's a disease or whatever, a bee sting or something like that, that comes through your community. It might kill one or some of you, but not all of you. And we can talk all about things like the Black Plague of the 1300s in Northern Europe, how many people it killed there, percentages, and then the people who were able to survive because they had some genetic immunity to it. And then those are the people who ended up being having better survival rates and becoming you. You became, the words did not work very effectively because I was also thinking about cats. Something similar happened with cats, that they went through kind of like a genetic devastating plague many generations ago, but then those are the cats that are able to avoid getting the feline HIV, the FIV. So like blah, blah, blah. The details that don't matter, the semantics don't matter. All that matters is Genetic diversity helps to protect a population from getting wiped out by something that would be like a disease, a virus, a pathogen, or some kind of a environmental nonsense. It is also crucial in terms of the multifaceted aspects of consciousness on an esoteric level. So you have these multiple different facets or viewpoints, and you're much less hackable because of your unique qualities, because of your individuality and your unique identity. And that is a big part of this too. So because human reductionist science, which now I'm like severely shaking my fist against them, not only are they like bad, wrong, and poopy because they're like, oh, like we'll just splice some CRISPR here and splice some CRISPR here and do this and that. But also humans who are using that type of apparatus to manipulate DNA, they don't even yet know like what they're messing up or why these codes are so important or why there is diversity. Like, why not just like make the whole next generation the same? Why even bother having diversity? Diversity, schmaversity, make everybody the same. And then everybody will work for the government and it'll be a utopian paradise, right? And you're like, no, that sounds terrible. And also, how would you choose who you're going to, make as the conformity person, the original recipe, and how would you do all these different things? And so all of these things, like you're not going to engineer a better world than has already been created. You're not going to engineer a better world by reducing genetic diversity, especially not in humanity. And the sense of creating just a total conformity or cloned expression future would be reduction in the capacity for human thought to move on. Just for let me start from a different direction. I was like, as I'm playing that song, I'm like, I'm not even that into this song. Like, let me just start from a different direction. Okay, so I want to teach you about flying rainbow lasagna. And so when I came here with this information, I'm like, I want to teach people about this. I did not yet even have the vocabulary or whatever I call like higher educational academic wherewithal to be able to talk about these concepts with you. So I had to learn all about DNA and the vocabulary of it to be able to even talk about this with you. This is something that I do spontaneously and that I learned how to do or initiated the capacity to do it and then developed the descriptive terms of it. So I didn't even, first I invented the instrument and I invented the music that comes out of this instrument without even really knowing what DNA is or using the same type of descriptive terms that you use around here. Then after creating this as a capacitation, now I'm trying to use the concept of DNA and its molecular mechanics to talk to you about this thing that is not an impossibility, but an extreme unlikelihood. So when you perceive flying rainbow lasagna, in the not knowing, you might be like, wow, like that can't happen. How can that happen? Is that happening? That must be magic. And that's totally comprehensible. That's like Arthur C. Clarke's definition of magic, something that is an extremely high level of, to him, technology. This is not a level of technology, but let's say it is a level of capacitation that if it's beyond comprehension, you would just be like, I don't even know what this is, but it's something. But it is important for you to understand the intervening steps and not just jump directly to lasagna, even though I would like for you to do that. In coming here, so now I'm telling you more, and today I will do a lot of talking about my personal journey. I had to learn how people learn. So I do lasagna as my, spontaneous genius thing that I do. And then it's very hard when you have something that's just a gift like that. You're like, now I'm gonna dissect it, analyze it, and put it into some kind of a curriculum that I can teach or show or share with other people. So please know that in itself is very difficult because you have to kind of analyze yourself out of your own natural state. You have to become self-conscious. And also, a lot of what I do is offer this as an option in freedom, but not as an imposition upon you. So it is something that I offer but it is up to you to take it, personalize it, internalize it, and apply it to your own life. And I used to be extremely hands off in my value system and how I offer this to the world. I would pretty much say these are the tools. Like, this is the truth about lasagna. This is what this is what this is, and this is how I do this. Take it and run with it. Very much like if I were an art teacher and you came to my art class, I'd be like, okay, like this is a pencil, this is this part, this is this part. I do this with it. Here, take it, run with it. But I didn't show you very much more than that. And then over many years, and especially as the pandemic started, it became much more obvious that I had to be more involved as a teacher, that I couldn't just be like, yeah, take this and do it. So like I used to not even show people the dance because the dance is a very private thing. Like, again, things that you're doing with your DNA, with your consciousness, and with the fabric of reality, these are like private things. And I wouldn't necessarily call everyone up and be like, hear ye, I am now going to do some very private, supernatural things with the fabric of reality. But I would tell you that it is possible to do them and that I have done them. But then after a long time, people would be like, Aurora, just show us the dance already. And I kind of got a little bit past some of my hangups. So what I did was got together a small group of people that I trusted on, Zoom. And this was even before people were doing everything on Zoom. And I would do some dances from my home garage, like where I would do my dance ordinarily and just be like, this is my life. And here's the camera. And now I'm just doing it in front of the camera. And so that was positive and gave you more coaching or direct mentorship about how to do it. But then it still was a long time before I figured out, oh, like to teach you how to do lasagna, I have to do this, this, and this. So I used to be, like I said, a lot more hands off, just giving you options, just giving you tools. Then I started to show you as an example what I'm doing with it. Then still it was necessary to do a lot more direct intervention. And then as the 5G and other inhibitors got worse and more intense, my efforts to show you had to kind of get better and more intense. And so I do this now on my Tuesday dance group. There's not a fee to be a part of it, but it is, again, by invitation only, because it's only people that I would feel comfortable like sharing that part of who I am with them. But what I do now when I'm taking people through so what I used to do is just be like, here's lasagna, like do it, like make yourself available to it, just spontaneously do it. And I realized that wasn't enough. And what you need is kind of like, again, mentor, coach, or like someone to give you some structure or like show you how it's done. So I've never been surfing in the ocean. And actually, like, I think I'm very like not a good swimmer and I don't have those skills. But I use the analogy of going out into the ocean to be able to do this. So in order to do lasagna, first, what we do is a warm up, like getting into the body and out of the intellect, then accelerating the energy field, accelerating your inner energy field, accelerating your external energy field, then getting out of or disengaging from five senses reality, then being able to go through these interdimensional portals that I recognize not everyone else can see or perceive. So what I do is I accelerate everyone. I get everyone out there. I say, like you have to paddle out, like on surfing, like you have to paddle out to get to where the waves are. So you have to get in the time field to like where the time waves are, and you kind of feel them coming up your body. And when you feel them coming up your body, that is when you get ready and you go through these portals, like literally with your body. So human beings, from your balance and your training from like a tiny baby, you're used to walking on your feet. And if you go through a doorway, you're used to walking on your feet like this. But in the higher dimensions, we don't walk on our feet. It's like flying or floating or skydiving. So we dive through portals. So a lot of my dance, when I do it, is done like on the ground, do floor work and roll, and we roll through portals or do these postures, as if you are floating in the air to be able to go. Floating in the air is not the best way of saying it. as if you're in a non-gravitational space, as if you are not required to stand on your feet, on the ground, using your balance to stay aloft. And really, when I take people through these interdimensional portals, what I am perceiving is something with my inner eye, with my higher senses, with my Christ consciousness, with my librarian card of the universe, led by the librarian. And the librarian is like, you're going to want to go through that doorway over there. Get going, kid. And also, I will say that there are like colors or a size, like a magnitude affiliated with a particular portal or a particular experience. Here, let me just drink my water here. So when I dance on my own, I do not do this. But in order to teach other people, I've learned I have to tell you, like, because you're not perceiving it, I have to tell you, like, okay, paddle out. Okay, stay aloft. Okay, wait for a wave. Okay, here comes the wave. Okay, the wave is whatever, a 3.3. Okay, the wave is orange. The wave is coming up your back. Now you want to go with your torso and go through that wave, and now you want to come out the other side. And when you come out the other side, just like diving into a pool of water, you want to clear yourself, clear your energy field of any unintended consequences. So when you do the flying rainbow lasagna dance, it is a dance of vibrating with your DNA and making it move in complex higher dimensional patterns. When you do that, what you're doing and what you're perceiving with your mind and your genuine senses is that you are going through a world. And it might be confusing or even too much for you as a beginner to make sense of the world that you're going through. But that is normal for me. And also, I would like to just be in that world. And that's what we will be, that like in the promised land, in utopian paradise. We will not have to return and like take care of our Geico bill. We will just stay in that accelerated state. But in moving through those patterns, what you're doing is connecting directly with time and creating events in time. So ordinarily, you're experiencing events in time. You are maybe moderately contributing to them or moderately aware that you are making things happen. The ultimate is when you are consciously aware you are making things happen. And the ultimate is when you're not only consciously aware that you're making things happen, but that you are writing new narratives where you're like, not only do I make a choice, like there's a pre-existing fork in the road, turn left or turn right. Not only do I make a choice to turn left or turn right, but I can even write something more, which is I can say, there's a fork in the road to the left and to the right. But I write, there's another option. Oh, look at that. It turns out that there was another road going in another direction that I can make extra new branching timelines. So this is much, much more than just the simplistic sense of like, let's snip some DNA out of here and spackle it into place over here, and that will make events happen in time. Because humans that are doing things that are very wrong and harmful in their bodies and they're really afflicting other people around them are like, hey, I think I want to have brown eyes. I want to have like purple unicorn eyes. So I will splice out my brown eyes and put in purple unicorn eyes, and then I will be more beautiful or more magical or something like that. But in so doing, if you do that because you're so erroneous, disconnected from divine thought, and moving in levels of self-service, you're destroying the fabric of reality just so you can have whatever purple unicorn eyes or something like that. So the expression of physical protein characteristics is a minor secondary offshoot of the fact that your DNA is making things happen in time. And the things that you're making happen in time should be events that keep you healthy and alive, that shouldn't just be about vagaries of appearance or levels of those types of levels of self-reflection. So it is truthful that your DNA is a descriptor of proteins in your body, like the shape of your nose or the color of your eyes, but it is about so much more than that. So let me also tell you this. I've been speaking, just dropping a few tidbits throughout class recently against peptides. And some people have contacted me to ask me for more. Of course, I am not a scientist. I am like an intuitive, so please take it from that direction. But the problem with ingesting peptides or any of these artificial protein structures is that in your body, the order of operations is supposed to be your DNA talks to your RNA, and your RNA talks to your cells and says, hey guys, make a bunch of these protein structures. And then you have protein structures in your body. And instead, what a lot of people are doing, they're like, well, I like that guy. That bro is so pumped and he is so swole. And he's been to the gym. He's a gym bro. And I want to look like him. And he's got these peptides in his body because he's working out all the time. How about I just artificially manufacture these peptides and inject them into my body? Then I will have the peptides as if I have been working out. So none of that works. All of it is a terrible idea. There is not a way to cheat code or hack the fabric of the universe that way all of a sudden you can be a fabulous bodybuilder, but spend no time in the gym. And these are erroneous desires to even want to be that way. And so I have to describe it from the level of time because humans aren't yet perceiving time accurately. But if you're over here on these timelines, you don't have these muscles. And if you're over here on these timelines, you have these muscles because you did a thing. Like if you do this, you grow muscles. Like if you chop wood, you grow muscles. Or if you run a marathon, you grow muscles. But the desire to simply change the morphology of the body without actually doing the activities is the ultimate insult. It is the ultimate non-reciprocity. It is the ultimate entitlement and rejection of the gift and lack of gratitude of what it is to be here. So this comes to all of these things, to be able to have athletic muscle mass or to be able to be more lean than you are otherwise. This whole thing with people taking different peptides that make their body act or mimic is the word. They're protein mimicking structures that are trying to reverse engineer the body shape that they want, which is more slender, to then go into their chemical structure of their body. It's all bad and it's all wrong. Why is it bad and why is it wrong? Why not just be like, okay, fine. Follow your folly, silly person. Inject yourself with whatever. Gila lizard protein #1 and go jump off a cliff, whoever you want to do, because I have just been the worst at telling you that DNA is connected. All DNA is connected, and you are not just one cell looking out for #1. You are part of a whole larger body structure. So in the body, there are these cell-to-cell signaling structures that are called hormones. And if you're one individual cell, you're like, I'm a cell. This is my cell membrane. It's called my epidermis. And then this weird thing comes up to me that is called a hormone, and it tells me to do stuff that seems like it's coming from outside of my body. And the stuff that it's telling me to do might be like to metabolize glucose. That's what insulin tells me to do. Or to, do another biochemical activity in the body. And I listen to it, even though it seems like this thing comes from outside of me, because the truth is, I know that it's actually coming from me. The inside and the outside, the definition of what is inside and your identity. So if you're like, that peptide or that insulin didn't come from inside of me, it came from outside of me, attitudes, I'm not listening because I don't identify with the larger structure that might be named Aurora. I only identify with the smaller structure that might be named whatever, cell #1 or cell #1000. And then I'm not going to do the things that are good for the entirety of the body. And if you do that, then you get ejected. I'm really trying to say this, but not getting there yet. The meat and potatoes are that your strings of DNA influence one another. And that is called sympathetic vibration. It's the foundation of what true compassion should be. But in this world, it is being used as a torture device because you are being yoked with and connected to very, very unhealed and unhealthy presences who are involved in not only not self-love, like self-hatred, but also self-abnegation, the denial of true self and the denial of true needs, the true needs of the self. And then as that person is self-destructing, they are connected to you and are in the process of making you be destabilized by their self-destruction. If it weren't in that way, I would be like, Hollywood people, inject yourself with as much lizard protein as you want. Like, try to look thin. I wouldn't care. I never care because I never care about what stupid Hollywood people are doing. But when they start to do stuff to their DNA, that emanates and connects to yours and my DNA, and it connects to the larger time fields. So at that point, you realize I've taught you already in class for the semester, you're not swimming around in your own private kiddie pool in your mind, and you're not in your own unique, individual, disconnected DNA structure. DNA is interconnected and interwoven or interactive. And the things that other people are doing to their DNA have an impact on you and your DNA. If someone else is doing something that they think will make them smarter or more beautiful or the Ubermensch, the higher man in some way, it might temporarily benefit them, even though all of these things are short-term gains for long-term losses, but it will have a negative impact on you. So one of the worst things that 5G did or does, and I'm of course working to destroy it, is or was to artificially connect together people's DNA and people's energy fields, because it should be you're an individual and your DNA is doing a thing. And if you're successful, you're like a successful business, you have money, keep going forward. If you are doing something with your DNA that is not successful, that is pathogenic or cancerous, then you should be deemed to be malevolent, not successful, and you're not going to move forward in time. And so that should be like, if you're successful, your body is healthy. If you're successful, your finances are healthy. You have money. If you're successful, you have a house and you keep living and keep on doing stuff. And if you are not successful, like if you're doing bad stuff with your DNA, you should not have a body. Like your body should fall apart. Your finances should not be successful. Finances should fall apart. Your home. You should not have a home. You should not have a place to live. Like you shouldn't occupy physical reality. You shouldn't use glucose. You shouldn't use resources and matter and energy. You shouldn't be in existence. And that would be the very, very fair reality refinement apparatus or the sieve, where it's like if you're doing the wrong dance, can't be in reality. You dance your way out of reality. So now we've talked a lot about the wrong stuff. I want to talk about the right stuff because I came here doing my flammable lasagna dance. And also like I'm always doing it. It's not like I'm like normal, 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 normal. And then for 5 minutes, flammable lasagna, crazy all over the place. And then back to normal, like straighten my tie, back to normal, back to normal, back to normal. No, I am bizarre and totally non-normal at all times. But there are some times when I am really focused on my dance and I'm not focused on any of my other responsibilities in life. So some of the time I focus on flapping up my moving mouth parts, eating, drinking, standing upright, balance, aspects of socialization, other aspects of human dynamics and economy. But at least once a day, or sometimes several times a day, I make time for the dance. And that means that I make myself available to this higher dimensional experience where I can prioritize responding to the higher dimensional currents of time and not just the mere five senses reality necessities for survival, like paying attention to my five senses and paying attention to my surroundings. So when I do the dance, I'm just grabbing some water here. When I do the dance, a lot of the time I do it with my eyes closed. And so I always joke, like if you're going to do that, of course you have to make sure that you've got the place cleared out. You're not going to run into anything. You have to dance safe. All right. Make sure that you're dancing in a safe place. But a lot of the time, dance with my eyes closed. And that's where I'm seeing these different shapes, colors, magnitudes, and portals. But also, please know that I'm seeing, but I'm really sensing because I also feel with my energy body where things are coming from. I've told you anecdotes about my friend who was a psychic. She's passed on at this point, but one of her psychic powers was tactile. Like she felt ley lines or currents of energy whenever we were walking around, including inconveniently sometimes when we had to cross the street. And so it ruled her life, and it was how she navigated the world. I would say I have a similar gift in that I feel currents of energy, and it is like a feeling, like a tactile sense beyond what I see with my mind. And it is that feeling that helps me to navigate and to know where I need to fly or how I need to locomote through the higher dimensional fabric of space time. All right. So I should even rewind on all of this because flying rainbow lasagna is a verb. I haven't made that clear. Flying rainbow lasagna is a noun. It is a thing. It is a this. But flying rainbow lasagna is also a verb, a thing that you do. So it's an embodiment. I am flying rainbow lasagna because I embody the lasagna, but it is also something that I do, and that I do the dance, but it is also something that I do and that I use this as a modality to write the fabric of reality or write reality stories and to affect reality. But as I'm trying to describe to you that there is a value system, boundaries, and aesthetics that I use in creating a body, I also use boundaries and aesthetics and decency in creating stories. And there really is a correct shape to the narratives and the stories that we're supposed to make, even as there's random eye colors like purple sparkle unicorn, like no one is born with that. There's also real stories in your life versus fake stories in your life, like real things that would happen as opposed to fake things that would happen. So I'm trying to think of good examples, but like, I mean, oftentimes I tell you about the membrane of death and how you have these alternative realities in any way. So one example is years ago, I was walking my dog along the side of a road where kind of like the cars come around, and there was not really a sidewalk. And one of the cars came kind of close to us, and I was thinking, oh, if the car had come a little bit differently, and if this had done differently, we would have been smushed on the highway and would not have made it home. And that would be an alternative reality structure. And there was a very clear information from my higher self that was like, no, there is not actually a higher reality structure where that happens to you. It is erroneous to presume that you exist like at the center of a dandelion seed head with radiating spikes of crazy crapitude all around you, like any weird thing can possibly happen all around you. That is not truthful, especially when it relates to your death. There are only a certain set of parameters around you, and your death and the final denouement must add up and be a part of the overarching structure of the mapping of the skin of the torus. So all of these reality structures are much more similar to Sudoku, the amazing, brain liquefyingly difficult puzzle game with math, where you have to add up in like a square, like in a grid form, all of these different vectors, and they all have to add up, all of the digits, like from 1 through 9. So if you know, like I've got all the numbers 1 through 8, the last number's got to be number 9, right? Or I have all the numbers except for 4. This number over here has to be 4. And it fits together in the cohesive puzzle. Skin of the torus is mapped in exactly the same way, where you have vectors of events. Some of them go at an angle, some of them go, in a straight line. But in whatever direction you're going, they all have to add up to the totality. And so there is only totality when you complete the story. And, not every form of death would complete the story. So, no, on that day, there was actually not a timeline where me and my dog got squashed on the highway by some poorly driven vehicle. That did not complete the Sudoku of our timelines. And so it's important for you to know as you are becoming adept in writing events in time, or like becoming a good painter on the masterpiece of your life and on the fabric or canvas of reality. It's non-arbitrary. There is a very, very clear pattern that you're supposed to follow. And the pattern is part of what holds the fabric of space-time together. So you can't just create random protein structures or colors of eyes or reality structures. When people inject themselves with something, they're like, I'm fat, I want to be thin. They're like, put me on and create a random reality structure where I'm thin, or where I look like this or that Hollywood star, or have this or that, whatever strange physical appearance on the face. And not only are these unnatural looks, like the person is in the uncanny valley of distorted human physiognomy, but also they're not supposed to be there. Because think about this, what puts them on those timelines? A technological intervention. Just like when a French bulldog is born, it must be born through cesarean section, through technological intervention. That whole species is so fake and so distorted. Sorry if you guys have Frenchies. They're cute little dogs, but these are very genetically modified dogs. They cannot be born naturally. So in order for them to even be here, it necessitates the expectation of the existence of technology. Think about future or alternative aliens who are so unnatural or so distorted that they can't even come into being or exist without some form of artifice or technology. That, first of all, that's not who I am or what I am or what I propose at all. And those are all detrimental, harmful timelines. In fact, those are all timelines that harm and destroy and degrade the fabric of reality. You in your body containers right now are already very diluted from your original genetic capabilities. Your original genetic capabilities were effing awesome. You did not need to eat or drink physical food. You created your own microclimate. You lived for pretty much forever in health and beauty and, supreme athletic capabilities. No chronological aging, no decrepitude, no death, no disease, no pathogens, no cancer, no hunger, no discomfort. And every moment and every step was like a complete orgasm. They're like, Aurora, you're describing like some kind of a heavenly utopia. I'm like, yes, your bodies were originally created to be the embodiment experience of what you would right now define as a heavenly utopia. Sorry, I always have flies in here during class, but which has been degraded into this realm of mortality, discomfort, and severe difficulty. I'm thinking also, as I always deride the Bible and that particular expulsion from Eden moment, the Adam and Eve being told by the angel, who is very mad in the painting, "Get out." The angel's like this, "Get out." And Adam and Eve are like this. They're so they're down, and they're getting out of Eden. And the whole point is, in the Bible, it speaks about how prior to that, life was orgasmic, and after that, after the expulsion from Eden, the definition of the human condition was you now have to toil in the soil to be able to get your food, and also women would bring forth their children in painful childbirth. So these are, of course, not direct analogs. It's like mythology from people, but it's apt in the sense that it responds to or evokes some of your original memories of what life is like in ancient concurrent Atlantis. We did not have physical children, physical birth there, which is why it's evocative, but not an exact memory. But please know that in ancient concurrent Atlantis, every moment and every step and every physical gesture is very orgasmic, is very euphoric. And, of course, I'm sure you can comprehend that many people in this layer of reality are in huge levels of grief at what they've lost from that level of reality. And they spend a lot of their time here chasing the euphoria. And that is part of what the self-destruction of drug addiction and substance abuse and escapism is about, because you do have this vestigial wounding, and we all have it. So that's why it's very, like, you can be very sympathetic to it. You're like, I know, we all miss that level of reality where every minute was a giant euphoric, ongoing, beautiful, blissful orgasm. And like, now we're here and it's a world of mortality and you have to go to work. Like, none of this stuff is very good. But that's what our original template for reality was really created to be like. But you can't just simply say, well, okay, fine, then I'm going to find the genetic code for blissfulness, and I'm going to find whatever are the four proteins that code for bliss, like I'm being a stupid scientist now, and I'm going to create a bliss peptide. And we're going to figure out what the bliss peptide is, and then I'm just going to inject it into me and you and everyone else. And then we're going to call it whatever, like glycobliss. And we'll get the pharmaceutical companies to pay for it, and the governments will subsidize it. And then, of course, I'm being silly and hyperbolic, but we'll make millions and everyone will be in bliss. So what would be the problem with that? Be like, Aurora, the problem with that is that bliss is not just an abstract goal, it is the intended byproduct of living a life that is correct. For example, Aurora, when you are playing your music and you're in perfect bliss, you're playing the right notes and sounding good, and you're blissful because you're doing the right thing. And to contrast that, Aurora, you're not in bliss when you have to do something like replace the tail light for your car, because that's difficult and not what you're well suited for. And I'm like, yes, that is absolutely correct. So the end result should be, I should just give you these bliss injections and forget about you actually like making a painting or making artwork. And it's like, you will feel very blissful, but the world will suffer and have not the right paintings or music. And that's the problem. So the problem is, if you could take a shortcut to slenderness or leanness or athletic, having an athletic Olympic body, and you could just bypass all of those silly hours spent at the gym. It's like, the problem is you're supposed to do the thing, the time. You insult time when you're like, I would like to jump over all of this supposedly wasted time and just get to the end where I have the thing that I want. So the problem is objective materialism. It does have the word in there, objective, like to objectify. People look at the human body and they're like, I want to objectify the human body, meaning like, I want one from column A, one from column B, cut off that, sew it onto that, and then give it to me. Like, you don't look at the whole entire, you as humans, not you in this class, but humans haven't been looking at the whole entire body and recognizing that it all fits together. Humans in the objective materialist world have been objectifying the body and saying, well, I like that earlobe, but I want it on that face. Then I want to take that hair and put it onto that. And then I want to put it onto a taller skeleton. Like, this is not the way it works. This is not the way anything works in nature. Not creating like your ideal woman or ideal man, but I think it's much more been in the patriarchy perpetrated against women to be like, cut off this ideal earlobe and inflate this body part and put it onto here. Pardon me when I say so much. You're looking at a series of individuated characteristics that would be randomly cobbled together that are disharmonic. It's like a recipe that doesn't really taste good. You're like, well, what I want to make a recipe where I want to take like the redness of a cherry, but then the taste of a blueberry, and then the size of a watermelon, and the this of a that, and then put it all together, and that's going to be the dessert. Like, you will not really get something tasty, but you will get something that is a very strange amalgamation of your supposed preferences, characteristics. So again, you can't just take your random socially amplified preferences for certain characteristics, be they personality characteristics or physical characteristics, and amalgamate them into an organism and say that is a successful organism or that is a beautiful organism. Really, especially like now you have created technology to be able to create genetically modified organisms, but in the past, organisms had to develop, and they developed over many generations according to their efficacy or how well they worked in the world. And even when there was selective breeding, like to be able to say, we're going to take Queen Anne's lace and we're going to breed it into the juicy carrots that we currently have in the grocery store, there was still the need for the intervening morphing of those vegetables to be successful as vegetables. They still had to be able to be alive and create seeds to go on to create the next generation. So that you could make slight changes and slight amendments to the shape and functionality of an organism, but you could not completely betray what is needed to be alive, because these parameters of what it takes to be alive are really intelligent. They're really intelligently created. And what we are here to do is not simply to fly in the face of those intelligently created parameters because they're just so inconvenient to us or we just don't like them in some way. You must come at the system of nature with the presumption of like, nature is doing something intentional and for a purpose, and we shouldn't change it for a random or meaningless or self-serving reason. But then we're going to get into flying rainbow lasagna as I start to teach people about flying rainbow lasagna. So here I am, I'm doing it so naturally. And I'm like, blah, 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 change your DNA, change the fabric of space-time, change and rewrite everything. But you guys aren't doing it yet, right? And as you get going on it, you're like, Aurora, am I doing it right? Am I allowed to do it? Am I blaspheming by doing this? And so many other questions come up. And I realized that not only in teaching you about this, I had to teach you like how to and what is the recipe, but I also had to go through the journey of accruing wisdom and your value system about whether you should and whether it is correct and sensible to do flying rainbow lasagna. Because it is not correct and sensible to do something like randomly rearrange your DNA or arrange your DNA into a way that is not life affirmative or doesn't help you in what you are doing. You would want to rearrange your DNA only into ways that are divinely connected, reciprocal to divinity, and that complement the rest of reality. Okay, so wait. Your I am presence, your red chakra presence, it says I am here and I exist. And it's part of being here. You're like, I passed the audition, like I'm here, deal with it. And you are in your own body allowed to change and transform and experiment within your own life. Like that's your I am presence. But you do walk a fine line because you have to balance out or mitigate. You are exploring for yourself as an individual, but you have an impact on other people and organisms and the fabric of space-time itself. So instead of speaking in generalities, I'll speak for myself. So when I create Flying Rainbow Lasagna and I initiated this the very first time, I really was going out on a limb. I was like, I am the first Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And believe me, I have taken a lot of flack for doing this. I've had to defend myself a lot from not only embodied human beings, but from abstract accusations that basically boil down to, Aurora, you're not allowed to do that. Like, you're not allowed, or you're not enough, or you're doing too much, or you're too this or too that. So it's important for you to know as you are coming into your capabilities that you are going to be enough to do Flying Rainbow Lasagna too, and to be able to defend yourself, like defending your thesis. So what I do is very mathematically correct. And that's part of how I can do it. So I don't use technology at all. And the way that I do my stuff is by being really good at math. if I weren't really good at math, I would not be able to do my stuff. So that is part of how you can even speak to your rationality here. Like, for example, genetic modification stuff that requires a machine, like a CRISPR or some apparatus, a laboratory. Like, it's a non-starter. If you need a laboratory to do that type of stuff, like, you should not do that stuff. Just like if you need a clank clank metal spaceship to fly from planet A to planet B, you should not fly from planet A to planet B. So none of what I do is requiring technology. I do it all utilizing my willpower and energy and pure consciousness. And I do it in accordance with the pre-existing perfect harmonic structures of divine intelligence. So I don't use technology and I follow the divine mandates or the fabric of reality. Like, let's say there's already a tapestry that is going on here, and I follow those patterns. I add some artistry to it and I innovate. And definitely the way that I express this has a lot of my own flavor in there. Color, beauty, lightheartedness, like these are some of my characteristics that I put into this. But what I'm doing is restoring. Like, imagine you have imagine my dress pattern over here. Like, you have a pre-existing aspect of it, then part of it got cut or degraded, and then you're putting it back together. You're like, oh, well, I can easily see where the blue meets with the blue and the white meets with the white, and you do what you need to do. That is exactly what I'm doing with Flying Rainbow Lasagna. I think it's important for you to know that I am restoring the story, restoring the narrative structure, restoration. I call it rectification, because you're in a world right now where everything is garbage and things are not the way it's supposed to be. And instead of allowing the world to devolve and go into non-existence or for the system to be completely destroyed, I'm like, no, this is a salvageable system. Got things that are really wrong with it, but you can salvage it. And the way that you salvage it is by Flying Rainbow Lasagna, which is doing this higher dimensional DNA dance. And in the higher dimensional dance, I've described this too many times, what you can do is keep going or amplify certain characteristics and turn down or edit or mute and make quiet other characteristics. And that's it, because you're in a world where some things sound good and some things sound terrible. And the things that sound bad, the noise, the ugliness, that was not an intentional part of this system. I've already told you, like, you don't have to recalibrate yourself or contort yourself into some false estimation that everything that you see is an aspect of yourself. You're not in a pristine system. Imagine being in a body where you're a healthy cell and there is cancer or like pathogenic bacteria all around you. And you're like, I'm doing the right thing, but all of you guys are very screwed up and you're not doing the right thing at all. And if I let you guys keep on doing the wrong thing, soon the body's going to die and no one's going to have a place to live or experience anything. That would be the equivalent of like destroying the fabric of space-time because of such out of balance or poorly structured narratives. So Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a way to rewrite narratives that restores not only your own life and your own body, your own interface with your community, but with the whole entire world. And Flying Rainbow Lasagna is the externalization of the internal. So I've been, like I said, teaching you about the allegory of a little ant on the inside surface of the bubble of time. The bubble of time is the moment now. And then there's another ant on the outside surface of the bubble. And that these two ants appear to be separated, even though they are, interactive and in one, their existence implies the existence of the other. What we're talking about now is your external world and your internal world. So your DNA, sorry, I have dog hair on my nose. Your DNA is an internal aspect of your body, and it's an abstraction and an expressor of pure potential or a holder of energy. And then your brown eyes or whatever, your hair, your elbow, these are external expressions. There is an internal aspect that is then externally expressed. And that's just on the level of the physical protein structure. You also have external edifices that are expressed in your relationships. So not only the shape of your body, but the shape of your life is written into your DNA. When humans first started to comprehend that DNA existed and to look at its shape and to look at how it's affecting the flesh, humans developed a deterministic projection of how to comprehend what DNA is and what it's doing. Determinism is the philosophy that says that everything about your life has already been written, and then you are here like an actor reading words that have been created by a great scriptwriter, but not innovating or responding in the moment. And determinism is really directly at odds with the concept of free will and making your own choices. So please know that determinism is highly flawed as a philosophy, and it is not truthful. Free will and freedom is a foundation in the development of the fabric of reality. But if you impose or project upon yourself a self-imposed delusion of your own incapacitation through determinism, then it will be your truth. But it is not your truth. Okay, so that's important to know. But when people looked at DNA when it was first perceived by humans in the 1940s, they were like, genetic determinism. That's when they said, these things are written in the foundation of your physical book of life. And because it's in there, it's going to happen, whether you like it or not, kid. So if you have some disease that is written into your DNA, like diabetes, you're like, it's going to happen. You're going to get that disease, or cancer. It's in your DNA. It's going to happen. You're going to get that disease. And this concept kept going until, like, let's say the 60s or 70s, when some better, more refined scientists came forward and they said, that's not truthful. What's actually going on is something called epigenetics, which is a code that rules the code. Epigenetics recognizes that um, uh, identical twins have exactly the same DNA, but they don't develop identical diseases. Two identical twins can have completely different lives, including one develops cancer, one remains cancer-free. And when that was recognized, then intelligent humans had to draw the proper conclusion, which is that cancer is not just something that's a genetic determinism. There is something that is behavioral, environmental, and that's possibly within your control that can determine whether you develop that as a potential within your DNA. So now we're getting into what humans call epigenetics, but it basically is the expression of the potential. You have potentials inside of you. You can express them. You can even write new potentials and express those new potentials. When babies are born, they are very malleable or able to be influenced. I am very protective of children. I've never had my own children, but I've done a lot of babysitting and nanny work. And it's not necessarily positive when, little babies are born and they are brought out to meet the whole family. You got like this little burrito all wrapped up and you kind of carry them around and like everybody holds the little baby and it kind of goes around the whole family. This is really not healthy. You know why? Because the older generation in this world that you're in is more decrepit. And what they're doing is giving a genetic imprint to that little impressionable lump of clay known as a tiny infant. So in the first year of life, the infant is still totally connected to the cosmic ocean of consciousness, not yet individuated, doesn't have its own name yet, and still has a beautiful open chakra up here to be able to connect through the DNA to the higher levels of reality. But as you bring this little impressionable child around to meet community members, but really family members, the family members imprint upon the child. And let's say the family members have corrective lenses, glasses, that activates that story within the child. It's not cognitive because the child doesn't look intellectually at the adult that is holding it. and say, oh, look, you wear those funny things on your face. I guess I'm going to wear them on my face too when I grow up. All of this is like nonverbal contracts. And same thing with diabetes or other things, biochemistry, metabolism, and even expressions of cancer. So I would say if you're a parent and you're, having like a little tiny child right now, be really super selective about these rituals of bringing your child around to other family members and having them be imprinted in that way. And it's very dysfunctional because in some households, a child will not be accepted if they don't have the same diseases as the older generation. Like, if the younger generation is slender and the older generation is out of shape and fat, and the younger generation is like, no, I don't want to eat that chocolate cake or whatever. And the older generation will say, who do you think you are? Do you think you are better than us? Why don't you eat this and be like us? Do you understand? Or let's think of something else. The younger generation wants to be athletic and he's like, I want to play football or be on the basketball team. And the older generation says, no, you can't do that. That is too dangerous. We don't do that in this household. Or who do you think you are? Or any of those things. It is a prevention of the natural and healthy self-expression of the next generation to supersede the previous generation. So now we have to talk about that in light of lasagna. Let me hydrate more. I already established that flying rainbow lasagna is always predicated upon freedom. In me coming here, first I initiated and innovated flying rainbow lasagna for myself. And then I'm like, it's my job and my self-proclaimed mission. I want to teach other people about this, but it is not my intention, or I don't even think it's possible for me to like force someone to do it, to force it upon someone or to somehow take away your free will and require that you do this. So in coming here as Aurora, it's always been my intention from the beginning to offer you lasagna as an opportunity to describe to you what I'm doing, to give you the recipe, but then it's totally up to you about you taking it, you doing it, you applying it to your life. So first, I want to show you my original lasagna because I literally used to stand on the street corner before I was very articulate with the English language. And I made this like out of kids' clay. And I used to just stand on the street corner and just offer it to people like this without really describing it or saying things about it. And you can imagine the things that people would look and they'd be like, what is that? Is that a candle? Is that a scented candle? What is this? Why are you offering this to me? And I totally thought that that was like me fulfilling my cosmic mission. I don't know if that's hilarious. I know if that's really coming out as like very funny, but I think that's pretty funny. I thought like, yeah, and that was like 2003 or 2004. I was like, I am completing my mission. And now it's over 20 years later. Like clearly that was not enough to be able to complete my mission. I had to really explain it and describe it much more in order to really offer it to humanity. But to get more serious, I came here and I offered, first I embodied it myself, comprehended it, and I'll tell you more about how I comprehended it. And then I created this externalized sculpture and version of it to be able to offer it to humans. And I realized when I just created like an object like this and offered it to people, people did not know that that was relating to their own internal structures or their own empowerments or levels of capacitation. So I had to learn how to even articulate that that is what this shape represents, how this shape relates to each individual person. And then, of course, that's already a lot of the curriculum that I developed. And then even as I told you, after doing it for many years, after teaching my class for many years and not showing the actual or demoing the actual dance, people being like, we need to see the dance. And then, showing it to people so that way they can even know what it is. Collecting my thoughts, all of these things are to offer it to you, but not to impose it upon you and not to take away your free will in your choice or your capacitation in how you do it. So when I first came here, and this still happens sometimes, like I would walk around playgrounds or like the community park, and some kids are really interested in my energy and my energy field. And I usually wear brightly colored clothes, but even if I'm not that brightly dressed, some kids are like in their stroller or they're walking along with their parents and they see me and they kind of like reach out for me or like their eyes light up or whatever. And I'm always happy and excited. And I'm always like, hi, like I'm always saying hi, hi, kid, hi. And sometimes the kids are like, hi, you, I think you're amazing. And all of this is nonverbal and it's purely telepathic. And I have a very fast genetic interchange with the child. And what I do is basically say, oh, hi, I'm a new genetic creature. I do my DNA like this. I know it's really different than your mommy and your daddy and everyone else in your community, but if you want to, you can flying rainbow lasagna too. Do it. And some kids are like, yeah, I want to, and I'm gonna. And some kids are the opposite. They see me walking along in the park and they're like, ugh, and they kind of hide behind their moms. And I'm like, hi. And they're like, no, I don't like you or your energy at all. And when that happens, I'm not personally insulted. What I do is interpret it, and I think quite accurately, as they are choosing their genetic patterns. They're choosing the ancestral patterns that are familiar and comfortable to them. This has nothing at all to do with whether my face is nice or whether my dress is nice or whether any part of me is fun or worthwhile. This has to do with me coming to a world that is supremely dysfunctional. And I have solutions, but I'm not going to force you to take my solutions. I'm going to be like, hey, here, have some solutions. And if you're interested, then you're like, yeah, I want those solutions. Tell me everything, or teach me, or show me, or let me eat it with everything I got. And some people are like, no, I don't want your solutions. I like my traditional dysfunctions, and I will continue to be a traditionally dysfunctional person. That means continuing to carry on these genetic patterns that might be about pathogenesis, like creating disease or decrepitude, getting older and worse, and your back hurting as like get up in the morning or something like that, or your skin getting wrinkly, or even disease and death. Kids that are hiding behind their moms, they're like, get out of here, you flying rainbow lasagna. Stop trying to make me change. They're basically saying, I want to be like mommy and daddy. And I want to get diseases and grow old and die. And that is actually one of the most difficult things that I've had to face in coming here, because I'm always thinking, like, of course, one would, like, doesn't everybody want to fly rainbow lasagna? Doesn't everybody want to remain healthy and vital and non-decrepit, not never get demented, never grow old, and never die? I know I sound like the end of that movie Cocoon, which I think is like a very lighthearted, beautiful, childlike fantasy type of view of aliens. But the old guy, Wilford Brimley, he's in the retirement home and he's talking with his grandson and he's inviting him to go up with the star people. And he's like, oh, come with me. We won't ever grow old. We won't ever die. Sorry if I'm getting a little bit off track into pop culture there. But if I sound like that, then perhaps there's something to that. But I'm very honest and very, very genuine in what I'm offering to you here. There's no Mephistopheles requirement, quid pro quo, and there's certainly no disappointment rug pull involved in what I'm offering. I do, and everything about what I do here is also to exemplify my value system, that you would want to get a recipe for immortality from me, because I am for real. I do put my money where my mouth is. I embody these things myself. I don't merely create an unfunded mandate. I stand behind all the things that I teach, and all of these things are in accordance with cosmic law. Like, you're not doing this at the expense of someone else or to greatly imbalance the fabric of reality. And in putting it in that way, it's like, well, it sounds fantastic. Why wouldn't you want a flying rainbow lasagna? I don't know. The truth is, I don't get it. Sometimes people don't want to change from their patterns. And I met many young people and people of all ages who are like, no, no, thank you. No lasagna for me. No lasagna for me. I'm going to stick with chronological aging, decrepitude, and death. But that is what some people are doing. And I don't know. I mean, just like philosophically, person to person, as I'm talking to you about my life here, there were several people that I knew when I lived in Woodstock, 15 years ago or so. And most of them were in their 30s or pretty young, and some of them were my friends, and they were dying of cancer. And I just remember thinking like that it was such a bizarre life choice for them, and that they had such other options, and that I could teach them and tell them other options, but somehow they were choosing that. I'm philosophical in this moment. The truth is, I don't really comprehend it, but I must respect it. In that some people think of it as like, the cycle of life, like winter, spring, summer, fall. And, as their ancestors did this and that and then died, that they also are doing this and that and then dying and then, leaving their children behind. And like it's seen as some type of a part of life, cycle of life. And what is it called when you have not a ritual, a rite of passage. When we have a rite of passage, it is seen as an innate part of being human and a rite of passage. And I don't think that it has to be. In all honesty, I don't think that DNA and death are innately intertwined and that you have to die as a rite of passage. So part of my challenge has been here for the whole entire time that I've been here, always knowing that death is not necessary. Death is not optimum. Death is not something I will be participating in. But then, and offering a very viable alternative in the flying rainbow lasagna dance maneuver. But then watching some people reject the flying rainbow lasagna and at times actively embrace their own personal death. Very distressing. But of course, if you're not connected together, then it's like you do you die. It's sad, but of course you do your own thing. But it's worse when someone is doing self-sabotage or self-destruction and it relates to their religious death cult programming or other aspects of the expectation of the whole entire world dying. A narrative where it's not just a body or your body that dies, but where it's the whole planet that somehow goes kablooey. And those are reality structures that I do not condone and that I will not add energy to or amplify or write into existence. And so then we are very much at odds with these two ways of being. Okay, pardon me for one moment. I'm going to get a little bit more water. Let's take a 2-minute break. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for that little brief break. And as I was just reading this, I think it was from Pedro. He says, I had a lot of problems to understand how to do the dance until you showed us how you did it, Aurora. I know. Thank you for that. And Pedro's a long-term participant and long-term dancer. So it's always good to hear that. So, okay, like from again, like when you do something that's very just like you do it like a second nature, like you don't even know what it takes to be able to tell other people how you do something. You're like this is like breathing, like this is not easy, but just the way that I do it. So even comprehending what flying rainbow lasagna is, way back in Woodstock, I was not as articulate as I am now, but people would come to my studio, like my friends or whatever, and I would try to like bumble through my explanations of what things are. And one friend, I had been friends with her for like 5 years. It wasn't until I showed her the animation of like how it jumps up and down and it spins around. And she was like, Aurora, like you have been talking about this to me for 5 years, and I think I'm finally starting to comprehend what this is. So I am very sympathetic to all of you guys. I recognize that I come here with, totally innovative, new, weird stuff, and you don't even know what it is or how to get traction on it or what is the entry point to this concept at all. So I have always been trying to be as innovative as I can in being able to even share this with you. But yeah, it's so let's talk about what this dance is on a genetic level, because I didn't come here with scientific knowledge, but now I do have that as a vocabulary to describe to you at least what the dance is what the dance is doing, what you're doing with your DNA when you're dancing this dance. But for you, so for me, I started doing the dance and then I had to work my way backwards and be like, well, now we have to teach people what is going on in their DNA, and then they will be able to comprehend this. you don't have to comprehend what your DNA is doing or be like, okay, I'm going to grab some adenine and then I'm going to grab some guanine over here. We're going to knit these guys together. Like, that is not how the dance is done at all. It is not intellectual. It is not analytical. It's not square in any way. Like, that is what how squares, I don't mean square dancing, but I mean like how losers dance. Like, okay, so to really do the dance, like you have to get into a feeling state. That's why this is a dance. And that's why I'm a dancer, not like a scientist. Scientists don't groove, dancers groove. And literally, your DNA has both a major and a minor groove. So, some of the things that you have to know about your structure of your DNA is it's often portrayed as if it is a sine wave, like up, down, with equal spacing on all of these waves. But you have to comprehend that it actually is kind of like two that are close together, like a ladder, and then it comes up and then it goes down like this. So you have a major and a minor groove. And what RNA and other aspects of these inner DNA messengers do is they go along the outer groove. So just like you have kind of like a roller coaster, like you have that little car on the roller coaster that goes on the track along the roller coaster like that, you have these little RNA molecules that go on the outside of your DNA, and they go in the major groove and they go in the minor groove. And what they're doing is they're feeling like Braille. They're reading the outside layers to be able to see what's going on in the book of who you are. Sorry, I still get too distracted when I try to admit people to the meeting, even when I'm like using the stylus. Okay, so they go on the outside of the mRNA goes on the outside of DNA, reading it as if it is Braille, and I'm collecting my thoughts here for a moment. Because your mRNA also reads your DNA when your DNA is unzipped. So we have to talk about supercoiling and zipping or unzipping. So DNA does supercoiling when it is woven together as one thread, and then energy is added to that thread. It's like crocheting or an additional layering of the original twisted strand. And that is one aspect of the information, like the picture that you can even make out of one thread of yarn as it is knitted together into a sweater. But there's other aspects of DNA that are revealed when the DNA double strand, like a zipper, is unzipped. And it is during both of these times when you can do flying rainbow lasagna. So when it is unzipped, that is when flying rainbow lasagna is a type of space holder or a stabilization, creating a higher dimensional armature that allows you to create new patterns. So in the teeth of DNA, like the teeth are like this, they're always going to do the dance partners across from one another. But when you unzip it, so here we are unzipping it and making it so that flying rainbow lasagna can go in between those two unzipped levels, it means that you can have new combos, new combinations that are not just like directly across from each other, but that are now at an angle across from each other. When DNA is unzipped, you still have this sine wave. I'm going to try to say it in the right way. So if I hold this up in just the right way to the camera, you will see that there's the back side. Here I'm tapping it with my pencil, and then the front side. But this is the crossing point right here. So here is one strand of DNA in the front of the model. And then here's one strand of DNA. You can barely even see where my eraser is in the back of the model. And I hope you can see here's the seeming X, not X shape, but the seeming DNA shape, like the waveform shape. So the words don't describe it extremely well, but when you unzip your DNA and you create this waveform presence between the two strands, this is spinning around like this, and this is jumping back and forth like this, and it stabilizes that DNA. So the DNA has been split apart, and there's flying rainbow lasagna here, and it's stabilized. That means that you're not going to die, because this represents time. When your DNA is split apart, it means that it is in a quantum indeterminacy. If we unzipped all of your DNA at once, you would die because your body would be like, wait, I don't even know who I am or where I am or what I'm going or what dimension I'm in. Like, I don't exist anymore. Goodbye for real. And so you don't do that. You don't unzip all of your DNA at once. And so ordinarily, when you're not flying Reba lasagnaing, your body unzips a little bit at a time. And then this is an mRNA messenger. The mRNA messenger goes in here and it copies, makes a copy, and then it takes the copy away and it zips everybody back up and you go back in. I haven't even said this correctly. Your DNA is like an ancient manuscript that is supposed to stay in the rare books department of your library. The reason why mRNA exists is because you don't want to destroy and corrupt the original priceless copy of your DNA by bringing it to the work site and having workmen make it, a blueprint, and they're going to get their fingerprints on it or whatever. They're going to get tobacco smoke on it or spill a cup of coffee on it. So what you do instead in your body is create a copy, which is called RNA. And the RNA comes out of the genetic library and goes around to the rest of the cells and is the blueprint that the rest of you uses to work upon. And the genetic blueprint in the library stays pristine. In fact, it is your connection to highest thought, and your DNA is floating inside of each nucleus in a sea of superpurified water. Very similar to how the synchronized swimmers of the Olympics are in like this giant pool of water, but it's so clear that it doesn't look like there's anything there. And the DNA that's in this super purified water, it gets information and insight from the water, not just from the structure of the molecules, but from the water being a type of antenna to higher thought. And also your DNA is influenced by thought forms themselves. And then your DNA amplifies and emits thought forms. So when we talk about what is the difference between one identical twin and another identical twin, why does one live healthily and the other one develops cancer? And the answer is because of different emotional states and different thought forms. Different emotional states and different thought forms can make DNA either be split apart, unzipped, so that mRNA messengers can get in there, or if your DNA is supercoiled, the pages of the book can either be opened up and read by the mRNA messenger, like Braille on the outside, or the pages of the book are stuck together and they cannot be read and they cannot be accessed. So if the book is called How to Grow a Terrible Cancerous Tumor, you want the pages of the book to be stuck together. You want it to be in the back part of the library where no one ever goes, right? But what if the book is called How to Dismantle a Tumor? Then you want it to be at the front of the library and you want the pages to open up and you want to be able to get to that information. Information influences your DNA. If someone told you, you can never dismantle a tumor, then that is one of the things that would cause this information about how to dismantle a tumor to be tightly stuck together and inaccessible. If someone told you, getting cancer is inevitable, again, dismantling the tumor information would be inaccessible to you due to the entrenched belief system that cancer is somehow inevitable and you must express it. So please know that all of these things, including the expectation of the inevitability of death, has closed the expectation of decrepitude, the expectation of pathogenesis, the expectation of the inevitability of death, closed you off from a lot of your genetic library and a lot of your true inherent genetic behavior. A lot of what I do in coming here is to give you a new and accurate story that is actually a continuation of the old accurate story that says, you can eat pure sunlight and you don't have to ever get sick and you definitely do not have to die. Me giving you those three pieces of information totally changes the dance of your DNA. Just as when you were first a tiny child, and I've said this in this class so many times, you didn't even know what death was. When you first came here, your DNA was dancing a dance of eternal life. You cognitively had no expectation of or awareness of what death is. And most people have some imprinting that might be from the death of a hamster, uh, goldfish, aged grandparent, or someone in your community, and you learn what death is. Or maybe it's the Lion King or something like that. But someone who's older than you tells you, oh, yeah, that's what death is. And then they're like, yeah, that guy's not here anymore. He went bye-bye. And then they say, and you know what, kid? One day you will too. And when that happens, it's like ka-chunka. Everything changes. And then your DNA changes. Your DNA starts to change and more accurately mimic the DNA patterns of the people around you who have already aligned with the story of their mortality. So the level of yellow, the hacked human operating system, is a big part of the connection to misinformation and the bad dance of your DNA up until this point. Like, why do I have to give you the flagrant lasagna dance? It's a beautiful dance. Why aren't you already dancing a beautiful dance? You danced a beautiful dance in ancient concurrent Atlantis, but in this level of reality, at the level of the conscious intellect, there are distortions and limitations. So you come here as a little baby. At first, you don't have language skills, but they start to give you imprints as like they imprint you with nearsightedness or diabetes or whatever as they're holding you. And then in the first couple of years of life, you pick up language and you learn. And as you do that and you begin to create the back doors for your software system of your brain to be hacked with language, that's when they slip in the concept of death. And as soon as you're old enough or together enough to even comprehend the concept of death, they tell you about it. And DNA goes from these beautiful, expansive movements that it's doing into something that reminds me of the robot, like very 90-degree angle, 90-degree angles, very limited, and it conforms to all the previous generation stuff. You know, when the previous generation tells you about death, sometimes it's like, I'm helping you. Like, that's the whole idea of fairy tales and modern pop psychology. They're like, yep, children need to hear fairy tales and they need to hear about wicked witches that will, shove you in the oven and pretend to give you candy because it's helping them to develop coping skills. But really, like, what you're really doing is grooming them for, having an expectation of, dysfunction and eventual death. But it's being presented as giving kids coping skills to deal with something that is going to be inevitable in their life. If it ever was inevitable, and I'm really not convinced upon that, it is not inevitable in this generation. And it is not inevitable since the creation of this flying lasagna restoration tool, because death and decrepitude were put into DNA as an ancient genetic modification, and then they've been a part of the musical score. They've been a part of this dance or this behavior, but now you can do a new dance. The new dance is called Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and it involves a pencil with an eraser, where you can erase out decrepitude. And then you're like, I don't like that DNA. I'm going to write something better in my DNA. This is everything of what FRL is. Flying Rainbow Lasagna is not a random rewriting of your DNA. So I'm not telling you to unzip your whole entire everything library all at once. And I'm also not telling you to make random connections. I am requiring that you be an utter virtuoso, selectively unzipping portions of your DNA, transforming them, bringing them into new combinations, and then moving forward from those new combinations. This is the ultimate. And it's not something that the previous generation did. So you know how misery loves company? If you wonder, like, why do some of these kids on the playground not want to change? Why do some of them go to be with mommy and daddy? They're like, get away from me, lasagna. I'm not some weirdo creep on the playground. I promise you that I'm safe. But why do they run away from flying rainbow lasagna? Why don't they embrace this capacity to change and grow and evolve and possibly even trouble the stars? Because they like doing things the way they're doing it, and because misery loves company. because there's this expectation and definition of what it is to be human, the human condition. Like you're going to get born, you're going to have a lot of energy, then you're going to get tired in middle age and need a cup of coffee, then you're going to have your own kids, make a bunch of mistakes, and then one day you're going to die. And then you'll be like, oh, now everything makes sense. Like I see how my life all fits together. And that's a traditional human pattern. And it's acceptable. Like, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not going to say that it's the best. I don't agree with it, and it's not how I live my life. But for a long time, that was the way that humans went through time, and that was the option. The point is that there now exists a new option. And far from like just merely judging the old option as inherently bad or inadequate, it might be adequate for some people, but it's not adequate for me. And there's a new way of doing things. That means you can do things in a completely new and what I think is much better, hugely improved way. But even when there's a new recipe, not everybody wants to embrace the new recipe. Some people might desire the comforts of what they already know or want to honor these ancestral patterns. Some people really do think like, yep, everybody is born, grows old, and dies. I want to be like that too. I want to be in the club. And when they do that, then they're like, oh, now I know why mom did that way because I'm now just like her. Or like, mom, I had back pain, but I have back pain now too. So now I can relate to her. Like for some people, they take it as a sense of life lessons and a comprehension with or a commiseration with their own ancestors, like their own mom and dad or their own ancestors. And there's so many social jokes about people becoming their mother. They're like, I just, embroidered a pillowcase. I've become my mother. And it's hilarious self-reflection. But again, what might have been correct or possible in previous or for previous generations is now not necessary and not necessarily correct for you because there is a new option. You don't have to get decrepit and grow old and die the way that your parents or other ancestors did. You can do something different. And it is not a disrespect to your ancestors that did it the old way. And it's not like, who do you think you are? And why do you think you're so this and you're so that, that you get to do it a new and different and better way? Think of it as some families have never had a college graduate and they're all like, yeah, like, get a job, kid, work hard. But some families are like, you will be our first college graduate. We are so proud of you. Please take this scholarship and go in a good direction. So that would be like flying rainbow lasagna. It would be like saying, take this scholarship, get a genetic education, learn that there are new things that you can do beyond your ancestral patterns, go to college, and then go in a good, positive direction. That is what healthy family members would want you to do. They wouldn't want you to stay at their level. They wouldn't be like, come down here and be with us. And they wouldn't say, who do you think you are? You think you're better than us. And don't get that education, kid. Got it? But also, so this is the position that I'm in. I cannot come here and force you, twist your arm, and like make you lasagna or make your children lasagna. My job and the limits of what I choose to do is to come here and offer it to you as an option and show you the example of my life. And then it's up to you about whether you take this as an option and apply it to your own life. So the first very many years that I was here were spent just establishing my veracity and my personal integrity. Because, of course, why in the world would you want to take a genetic imprint and learn from and become like someone who was disreputable or bad or wrong or malevolent in some way? And also, what if I was a liar? What if I said, like, oh, yeah, flying rainbow lasagna will help you to prevent decrepitude and chronological aging. And meanwhile, if I looked like I was 1,000 years old, whatever, with my face melting off my face and look like an old hag, then you'd be like, Aurora, I don't believe you because this thing is supposed to keep you young and you're clearly not looking so young. So I had to do in the initial years a lot of demonstrating that I am truthful and also that I am loving, because I really recognized in first coming here that I was on a very traumatized planet, a very traumatized, mistrustful world, where even standing on a street corner, I couldn't just offer this amazing, I want to say secret of the cosmic infrastructure, but like this amazing freedom, liberation, meta liberation tool. Everyone was like skeptical of me. They're like, who the heck are you? What the heck is that? What am I supposed to do with that? Is this a cupcake? Can I eat it? And there were very many barriers to people really internalizing this as an aspect of benevolence and truth. And so, of course, it's been many decades now where you guys know I've been here for a long time. I've established that I'm truthful, that my words match my actions, and I've been very consistent over many decades about who I am, what's my motivations, and what I'm bringing. And I'm so happy to say that through all of these, consistent efforts, I've coalesced around me the best of humanity. Thank you, everyone who's in this class. Just like cheer and soak it in, because you are the best of humanity. And it's taken a long time. At first I was very isolated and I didn't know anybody cool. And like I said, I was in a very small town in upstate New York, just trying to connect with people and show them this, cosmic secret. Like, nobody got me, nobody understood. And then please also know that it takes some amount of inner artistry, like spiritual artistry and spiritual athleticism, even if you are amenable to what I'm offering, to be able to play jazz, to be able to conceive of this and to want to do it. So thank you very much. Thank you for being the quality of humans, the best of who you are. And thank you for finding my work. And thank you for opening yourself up to these influences, because I genuinely influence you in a positive way. So when you were held as a little tiny baby, maybe whatever, Uncle Frank was like, oh, you'll be nearsighted just like me, or you'll have an overbite just like me. Like, that wasn't that great, right? But I am influencing you with my genetic dance by saying, hey, you can flying rainbow lasagna, meaning you can heal from things that medical science would say are impossible. So some of what I've demonstrated over the past, 25 years or so, not just remaining healthy and vital and youthful in my appearance, but also my body has gotten so much better than when I first walked in. I always tell you, this was a handyman special. My body, my house, was a fixer-upper and needed a lot of help. So it wasn't necessarily something like on the skin that you could see brain damage, a lot of problems, neurological problems, and a lot of other things like that. So it took a long time for me to do reconstruction of the physical cellular body so that I could be walking on a treadmill, talking to you guys, like have good balance, use both sides of my body, do all these different things. It's been a very long journey to do that. So for anybody, like if you don't, if you need to hear it articulated, no, I used to have a lot of difficulty with not seeing out of one of my eyes, having a lot of facial drooping on one side of my body, weakness on one side of my body. I used to not really feel my bottoms of my feet or feel things below my knees because I had a spinal cord problem also, like balance issues. I still have difficulty finding the right word, but I'm like 10,000% better than I used to be. I used to be very minimally expressive verbally. And I also still have a lot of very bad grammar and spelling mistakes, but now I just use it. I work it. Like you guys, that it's a sign of authenticity. I'm the real me when I send out emails with plenty of spelling mistakes. It is not AI, and I am not an imposter. But please comprehend and please know that I still have a ways to go with my ability to write, spell, and do good grammar. But I'm a lot better than I was. And all of that is through Flying Rainbow Lasagna. that I've done things that the world of medical science, as I first came here into the world and went through doctors and getting a prognosis and learning about epilepsy. I'm also much better as an epileptic too. I had very bad news from doctors. They were like, look, like you're not going to do anything. You're not going to go anywhere. Like they pretty much just told me that I should, just be on disability and live a very small life. And please know that I'm not judging anyone who is on disability. Like you have to follow your own path. But when they told me that, I was very rejectful. I was like, I didn't say this to them, but I remember thinking like that doesn't sound like a good life at all. And also like, I hadn't really made a lot of paintings when they told me that, but I was like, I want to be an artist and I want to like put my paintings in galleries and sell my artwork. So that was the pinnacle of what I could imagine back then. But I remember thinking like, no, I kind of want to just like whatever, be in bed all day or have a stipend. Like I want to be an artist and paint things and be in a gallery. So I already have far superseded the expectations, like I said, from the world of medical science that didn't think that I'd be able to be very productive or very connected, very contributory as a member of society. And also, like for many years, I didn't drive either because I had very, very bad depth perception. So please know it's been a very long uphill climb to be able to be like, I can drive to Arizona and do all these different retreats and things that I do. And also, you guys know that I used to have minimal math skills and minimal money management skills. Like I had so many things that I had to restore. And you can see that I've really done that in my life. So if you had met me 25 years ago, you could have valid skepticism, but who I am now, I have evidenced very effectively. Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a tool for inner rectification. So we're talking on a cellular level, but also on the level of time. And to use my own life as an example, there were many timelines where I chose to stay in upstate New York, but all of those timelines were membrane of death. Staying in upstate New York meant that my life only went so far, and then my life ended in these, final denouements. But by making the choice to move to California and to do what I do with raw cannabis juice and with CBD and changing my life. And also I did so many other things for my health. At one point I was very strict about food and carbohydrates and all these different things, but I did lots of different things and also had wonderful healers and mentors and, social support and community support at times. All of those things put me on different and better timelines. So some of what I did was aligned with better timelines by making better choices. And some of what I did was required or wrote better narratives because I rejected the inadequate narratives. Please apply this to your own life. Recognize that you have your own genetic blueprint and your own life parameters and your own biochemical and body challenges. But you can be similar in that you reject an unsatisfactory prognosis or you reject a low expectation of your success. And you're like, oh, yeah, no one believes me that I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. People who were in my life, like in upstate New York, when I told them I was going to move to California and drink raw cannabis juice and not take all of these pharmaceuticals from doctors and go to hospitals and things like that, they were like, you're crazy, girl. And they were like, you can't do that. You're not allowed. But I did it. And this is my life as a result. So please know that you have your own version of these things in your life. Not everybody faces medical or physical challenges, but there might be things that are dreams or requirements or desires that are hugely important to you, but that other people tell you is impossible or stupid, but you're going to do it anyway. And also, there are things that are important to you that you haven't even written yet as a narrative. And that if you shared it with people, you can't even share it with people because they would kill it before it is even born. So you have to just hold it inside and be like, I'm going to do a thing. I'm not even telling anyone about it. I'm just going to do it. And then after you do it, you manifest the impossible. And then people change and redefine their reality according to what you have done. So please know that I am on the ultimate path of least likelihood, that in this body, it is so unlikely that I would live independently, like not require, caregiving or for someone to look after me, and that I would make all of these paintings and make all of this music and be a teacher and write this curriculum and walk on a treadmill all day. Like, these are giant unlikelihoods, and I'm happy to share them with you because they are the five senses intellectual affirmation of all of the work that I've been doing in the flying rainbow lasagna world, which is a higher dimensional world, or a world of hyperspace, or a world of time dynamics, where I have changed and shifted my consciousness vector or trajectory through the fabric of time to be able to be here doing this. So of everything that I'm talking to you about, I hope that it's clear that I'm trying to be an inspirer, or to give you examples from my own life that you can then apply to your own life as an individual. And then you have to expand it to everything in your culture as human, because you don't want your planet to die. Like, you don't want to die as a person, but you don't want your planet to die. Of course, it's not that much fun, girl, to be an alive person on a dead planet. Just the practicality of that doesn't work out. And also, you are microcosm, macrocosm. You can't let the fabric of reality die. You can't let the planet die. That's you. That's you on a giant, more expansive level of reality. I'm going to get to all of your questions and comments. I want to talk to you about how I actually created this structure, because this is more like good, I'm going to say how we met stories from the original experiences of being Aurora. So the first couple of years that I came here, I was not very connected to human culture at all. I was very isolated. I didn't have good communication skills. I was not very articulate. I didn't really know like how to do things in the world. But what I did have as my focus is the sense that I needed to externalize the lasagna that I had inside. So I created the lasagna as a portal in 2001, but it took me about 2 years of making a lot of sketches and watercolors and paper models to try to figure out what it was. It was not something where it was like I came here into the world, completely in wherewithal, and was like, okay, I'm going to the art supply store, and I'm putting on the shelf, like, I'll take one of those, one of those, one of those. Here's money. I know how to use money, and I'll participate in commerce now, and I'm going to go home and immediately, make this thing, immediately make this lasagna thing. Like, that did not happen. That would have been the ultimate unlikelihood. No, a lot of things had to happen first. Like, I had to learn that food goes in here, and I didn't even know like how to put cream cheese on a bagel. I didn't know any of these things. So it took me a couple of years of working even with art supplies and art materials and tools to kind of figure out how to express this. So what I did was very similar to like if you were a Paleolithic person and someone gave you a shirt or like a dress, like up until that point, like you've just worn like animal skins kind of thrown onto your body, but someone gives you this thing and you're like, like it has a hole here, and then it has a hole here and a hole here, and somehow fits on my body. How I want to recreate it. How do I do this? What you would do is cut it apart really carefully and then lay everything out and then see if you can make an approximation of it. So what I did first was I made the shirt. Like I made all of these tubes and vortexes and taped it all together, and I did all these like crazy experiments and crazy things. I don't have a lot of them left anymore. But then finally, I ended up making something that looked roughly like this out of paper. And what I did was I cut it and I changed it and I kind of accordioned it and I made it so that it looked more like this, but made out of paper. And then after I did all of that, then I cut the whole thing apart, like the way you cut apart a shirt, and I laid it all out. And then I cut a template and I figured out how to reproduce it and how to make it again. That was how I made this one over here. So that process in itself, just the spatial awareness, learning how to use my tactile senses and my fingertips and to be able to make something out of clay or make something out of paper, that was a tour de force. Like when you're a little child and you come here and you're like, like you're like coloring, you're like this, you're like you color and like you squash Play-Doh and like you're playing with texture, you're playing with learning how to do all those things. I had to do exactly the same thing. I had to learn how this body works, and I had to learn what textures feel like, and I had to learn what art supplies even are like, what materials are like, and then I had to find some way to take what I felt and saw in my mind and turn it into something that is in the physical world. So I joke about when I first would go to the street and the sidewalk and stand there like this and try to give this to people, because although that wasn't enough in terms of being a human teacher or really communicating to humans what this concept is, it did fulfill like the very stark terms of my desire or of my agreement, where I'm like, I am going to bring the flying rainbow lasagna to the world. Like that, I went through an interdimensional portal and I'm like, I have to tell everybody about this. I'm going to bring the flying rainbow lasagna to the world. And then here I am being like, here it is. Like I did it. And then you're like, okay, like I did the thing. Like, am I done yet? And the answer was no. The answer was no, not by a very, very, very great long shot. So now you can also add together my story about December 21st, 2012, when I was like, from the very beginning up until that moment, working mostly in isolation in my art studio and making these different paintings and sculptures that depict what is this flying rainbow lasagna concept and truth, but I hadn't yet made it my effort to like teach it to people. So these are big distinctions, because I had to ratchet up every time. I had to turn up the intensity. It wasn't enough just to make a sculpture. And it wasn't enough just to make like lots and lots of drawings. And it wasn't enough to make all these other things and show it to people. Then I had to also tell people about it. Then I also had to demo it to people. Then I had to create retreats and like feed people while we do this too. So it's been a continual like upward and in greater levels of intensity to try to get people to get it. Like I actually think I way underestimated how difficult it would be in coming here to try to get this concept across to people. I thought it would be a lot easier. I thought my gig would be over in 2003. Literally, I came in 2001. I'm like, I'm just going to be here for a couple of years. Then I'm back on my cosmic voyage. Like, clearly, this has been much more extensive than I thought that it would be. And, of course, I've done the work very joyfully, and I'm very proud of the artistic merit of the things that I've made to be able to share it with you. But and I want to open the floor to any questions or comments or anything like that. But let me say this. Here's the essence of what I wanted to bring forward. Like as I was in my reveries this morning, I'm like, what is the most important thing that I can say about Flying Rainbow Lasagna? Even though I have a scheduled group that we do on Tuesday mornings, Flying Rainbow Lasagna is really a phenomenon. It's just like saying, like, the sun rises, but it's a phenomenon, or the Aurora Borealis in the sky. Like, it happens when there's solar flares. It's, comprehensible, but it's still a phenomenon. You can't necessarily schedule it and be like, hey, solar flares, like, you do this on Thursday. So the best way for you to cultivate and bring Flying Rainbow Lasagna forward as a capability in your life is to make yourself available to this spontaneous phenomenon to happen. In order to do that, you need to have proper rest, proper nourishment, for you to be optimized in your body form to be able to do this. You have to know that it is possible. You have to create an arena to do it within. Like, you're not going to do it if you don't have a dance space or if you only have a floor that's covered in broken glass. And then you have to have good music. Oh my God, guys, a big part of this is having, inspiring music. And then also some of it is the energy, the feeling. And since they turned on 5G, like it's been very difficult for the past 5 or 6 years to have that feeling. So I feel lucky, when I first came here as Aurora, I was able to do many, many years of establishing what I do and getting good momentum before they turned on 5G. Because now I know what things are supposed to be like, even though this is not optimum. So if you're finding my work for the first time within the past 5 or 6 years, please know that you're dancing in a very non-optimum environment or very anti-lasagna atmosphere. But that there are optimum, I call it like we're swimming through garbage. I'm like, garbage today. But there is such a thing as non-garbage energy patterns. And when you go through these beautiful, pristine energy patterns, or what it used to be like before all this 5G architecture, this is I don't even have words for it, but it is amazing. So it is very euphoric. It is very expansive. It is doing math in the most fun and fulfilling way, where all of these complex architectures and edifices match up perfectly with all these other causality structures, and it feels amazing and it looks amazing. So when you're really in your groove and you're really doing flying rainbow lasagna, like your life events in the moment and even reverberating after the dance feel amazing. It's very, very hugely uplifting. It is like becoming a millionaire. Like, you get energy by doing it. It takes a lot of energy to do it, but hey, kid, I'm chomping my cigar. You got to spend money to make money, right? Like, you're going to have to invest in the dance in order to get something out of it, but that we don't do it as a quid pro quo. But please know there are so many days where I'm like feeling so down and so grumpy. And I'm like, I need to dance. And I dance and ka-ching, like I go to the bank. I get so much energy into my energy banks that I come out of that and I feel wonderful. So it is not that it's like a compensatory, open account where it's just like, I'm so rich, like I can compensate for anything, but more a sense of, when things feel down or despondent or hopeless or non-optimum and not ideal. I have a whole teaching where I say, in the face of adversity, dance like a flying rainbow lasagna. It is literally the only sane response, the only rational response. It is a way to get out of your present limitations and open the door to new opportunities, or to get out of your neighborhood and go to get fresh groceries, fresh cognitive groceries, fresh consciousness groceries, or nourishment for your time body. New possibilities and probabilities, or Sudoku math structures that can bring forward new opportunities in your life. So like, what in my life, a big thing would be the choice, move from upstate New York to California. That's a big new change. Or moving from Northern California, where it was always cloudy, to Southern California, where I get all of this sunlight every day. Like, these were things that were within my capability to make a choice. And then the changes in time edifices that happened as a result. So with all of this, you're in a band, you're in a symphony. There are some things that are larger than you, but there are some things that are within your control as an individual or as a musician, where you can contribute to the structure of your life. So with your DNA, there are some things that come to you as the parameters and the boundaries. You will have one face, you will have two arms, you will have two legs, you will have one nose. Like, this is the rules of life. But then within those parameters, you have an enormous amount of wingspan to be able to be creative, make your own choices, and exhibit your free will. These are the levels of determinism versus free will, even though even the determinism of having, two arms and two legs, like, you made choices in order to be able to be in this physical structure. Even this is not an imposition. I know that I made choices to come into this particular body as part of my journey of walking in. But for you, I want to say, when you germinated, like when you were conceived in your mommy and your daddy, you made choices too about choosing to be in the human experience. And then you can redefine and add to the story of what it is to be a human. I think that that's one of the biggest things that I can give you as an emphasis, that your life is your masterpiece. And when you do the flying rainbow lasagna dance, every time you do the dance, you're adding a layer to the masterpiece. Now we are in art class. We're doing traditional oil painting. In traditional oil painting, you don't just dive in with like, here's my paintbrush. I'm going to get like a thick glob of white paint and I'm going to put it right on the surface. And that's the first thing I'm doing. No, if you were in my art class, I'm the teacher and we're doing traditional old masters art school stuff. And you did that. I'd be like, this is completely wrong. You're going to have to start over, wipe it all away. Because what we do in art class is begin with an underpainting and then many translucent layers of washes. So the underpainting, we begin with pencil or charcoal. It's erasable, where I'm like, oh, there's generally a face right there. There's generally some shoulders there. There's generally this, generally that, right? And then after I do that, I take a very diluted color and I do washes where I'm like, okay, here you can see it's dark over here. I'm going to do a dark wash over there. It's dark over here, dark wash over there. Don't put anything here because that part is light on the canvas. And then do kind of a orangey red wash on the face. Okay, good. And then let it dry. Let it dry and come back again the next day or in a week. And then you add more layers to it. And then as you add successive layers, this is old masters, the colors of flesh come forward. You might have started with this weird bright orange, but then as you add white and, pale yellow and other colors, then you get a convincing flesh color. And your life, and as you do Flying Rainbow Lasagna dances each day or when you are called to dance, you are adding layers to the beauty of the masterpiece of your time existence, your time crystal self, your masterpiece of yourself as time. You are the artist. So first of all, you must claim control over your art piece. You can't be like, don't blame me. I just work here. You must be like, this is my life. This is my artistic expression. I claim ownership and control of it. And you must check out the things that, like, do a real assessment. Be like, this part looks beautiful over here, but this part over here doesn't look so good, right? It's a work in progress. You are alive. That's the good news. So as an alive person, the masterpiece of your life is not complete. Like the final denouements, the last moment of your life, if you're dead, that's the painting is over, but you're alive and you're not dead. And so every time you dance, you have an opportunity to add more colors, add more formfulness and perfection to the masterpiece of your life. And what you're doing is not just creating new opportunities. Like when you wake up in the morning, you're just creating with your mind, but you're creating things that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. You are creating things that are nonlinear, things that have a unfoldment, not the right word, but a coming forward due to the creative folding combinations of the fabric of space, time, reality. So things are going along like this. You can add, like, I'm going to have this for breakfast, or I'm going to have this at lunch. But when you do Flying Rainbow Lasagna, you completely origami time. You completely redefine what is lunch, what is breakfast, what is your life, and what's going to happen with your life. And you can get inspired from ancient Atlantis, whatever, concurrent realities, future realities. Like you can very much redefine what it is to have lunch or what it is to have breakfast. It's sometimes the words that I use to describe, because I'm describing music with words. I'm like, none of the words that I use really give the experience of it. But what I'm trying to convey is that the Flying Rainbow Lasagna is not like something that you do once as a spontaneous phenomenon, and then that's it for the rest of your life. You are supposed to lasagna over and over and over, again and again and again. In fact, the ideal goal is to lasagna and just become solid state lasagna, like, and then you never stop lasagnaing and you just continue going forward. And that will be like a moment of ascension. That will be like a transcendent moment after which you will not be attending to your mundane chores and emptying the dishwasher or anything like that. So please know that we haven't gotten to that level yet, but accelerating towards it, certainly. Each layer of reality, every time you do your dance, what you're doing is fixing the genetic crapitude. Why do we even have to do flying rainbow lasagna dance? And I have so many notes and everything, and I'm always like, I take so long to be able to, do this, but read my notes. But one of the things, the questions was like, why are you even having to do flying rainbow lasagna dance? Do I have it written down here? I know if I do. Okay, but anyway, because you've been limited in your life, because you've been genetically modified not once, but many times, expelled from Eden and taken from the capacity to spontaneously optimize your environment around you. And so now you must consciously return to the activity of optimizing your flight through time and optimizing the fabric of time all around you. That this actually was something that we did very, I would say, as a matter of course, but those words don't work. But I would say we did this as an ordinary aspect of our existence in ancient concurrent Atlantis. And then in this world of mortality, humans have been taken from their divinity, from their divine nature, and from their capacity to externalize their internal state more and more, until at a certain point, humans got totally into materiality where they said, hey, kid, the world is just the world, and you're not externalizing crap. Like, the world just is what it is. It's not, you're not making it be. And that's one of the ultimate imprisonment hacks of the mind. Because then how can you even create or respond to the world? How can you even know that you're creating the world? One problem is disempowerment when people are creating the world, but they don't know or recognize or remember that they are creating the world. And another one is where people are garbage inside and they are manifesting and creating from that garbageness. And so what that can look like is people that read horror novels, like from Stephen King or other profound stories of violence, and they have calibrated to that and internalized that, and definitely garbage in, garbage out when they are in their flying rainbow lasagna moments of connection and creation. I won't even say it in that way. I would say it in a better way, that people who have internalized those levels of horror are always, or have been up until this point, they have been influencing time with their mind to expect the worst realities beyond even errantly encouraging people to express their genetic diseases and ineptitudes. These are people that are actively wishing harm upon others or envisioning from anxiety or malevolence that you are dead in a ditch, or that the worst has happened to you, or in a religious sense, expecting the world to be dead in a ditch, destroyed through some catastrophism. It's so important for you to protect yourself from those thoughts and from those realities that arise as an end result. So in your family, if someone was like, hey, we've all got diabetes, eat some sugar, you'll develop diabetes too. You can be like this inside of yourself. You can be like, I know that they all have that disease, but I don't have that disease. They have that disease because of their belief systems and also their behaviors. I can think differently, act differently, and be different. And then you can say to the family members, be like, no, thank you. I eat differently, or I'm not interested in that, or I want something different or want something better. Like, please know sometimes there are family members that are sabotaging you to bring you away from your optimum patterns, because misery loves company. Sometimes it is the larger social fabric, larger society that is requiring or requesting that you expect that you're going to go into catastrophe, or to participate in the death cult, or to participate in non-optimum realities, because again, misery loves company, and a lot of these narrative expectations were designed to bring you away from your empowerment. So I'm going to wrap it up, and my brain is definitely tired. I will try to synopsize it by saying this. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a way for you as an individual to retake control over the narrative structure of your life and to write a better story for you, independently of your ancestors, biological considerations, or social and cultural limitations. And so that means that you can be happy and healthy, do what would be considered miraculous or supernatural in your capability, and live a very, very good, healthy life, independent from any of the narrative structures that might be from your family or your culture or, human screwed up people that are trying to say about why that can't happen or how that can't happen. So everything that I've given to you here today is like the anthropomorphic verbal, very flapping of my moving mouth parts, low, slow, long, slow, boring, painful ways of doing this. But lasagna is fast. Lasagna is super fast, no talking. When I do my Tuesday class, I always talk because I have to say, here's a giant time wave coming, get yourself ready. But when I am doing the dance, I don't talk. Just like when I'm doing my painting, I don't talk. When I'm doing my painting, I don't have to be like, okay, now get some red paint, put it on your paintbrush, and now stick it over here. I just do it like boom, boom. And when I'm doing my Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, I don't have to tell myself with words what I'm doing. I simply know what I need to do. So I articulate it for the convenience of those that I am mentoring. But please know that when you are doing the dance, and the essence of what the dance is nonverbal, because it doesn't have anything to do with the limitations of what you have received from human education. You're in a lot of ways to do Flying Rainbow Lasagna, you have to release the human education and the human expectations of limitation. In fact, to do Flying Rainbow Lasagna, what you have to do is move beyond the five senses reality and the expectation of how you're interpreting reality, like through your system, through your lens, like I showed you last week in class, through your non-religious but Christ consciousness shaped lens, and to be able to create or write a new structure of reality. But when I do that, I don't necessarily sit in my dance where I'm like moving my body and be like, okay, here, I want this to happen and this to happen and this to happen. None of it is a laundry list. And I might do a laundry list or like some type of vision boarding or journaling or something like that. Not when I'm in my dance. When I'm in my dance, I get out of all of those intellectual and analytical and cognitive areas of my brain. And what I do is I utilize the calculative capacity of my whole body. So none of this is transhumanist, but please know that your body is a supercomputer or like a node, a processor on a giant supercomputer. And when you're really in the dance, you start to vibrate on an inner level where you also match up with outer levels. And you start to create these patterns that are very complex math patterns that are more than what your intellect can possibly comprehend. And there is such a thing also as state-specific memory, which is where, like, let's say when you're in a dream, you have certain experiences, and then when you come out of the dream, you can't remember them because you remembered you filed all those memories when you were in a dream state. Same thing with lasagna. When you are in a lasagna accelerated state, you might make memories and remember that you've accomplished things that are state specific to that level of acceleration. When you come out of that state and rejoin with regular reality and have to pay your Geico bill, you might forget that you even planted those seeds or occupied those levels of reality. And you have to kind of remind yourself, be like, oh yeah, remember, like I just did that giant Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance. Because what I encourage everyone to do is get out of physical reality, accelerate, go into this higher dimensional state, go through portals, do all this complex maneuvering, and then you re-engage with your physical body, like you re-engage with physicality, you come back to these edifices and these life events, but you're not in the same position that you were in when you left physical reality. And then you have the most fun being like, what's new? What's different? What did I make go in a new direction? And you walk around for the rest of the day being like, oh, look, like I never noticed that before. There's something there. Sometimes it can be a new decoration, like whatever, someone put a new potted plant on their front porch, but sometimes it's a whole new house, not even just a new potted plant, or a whole new street or a whole new neighborhood. Like you literally dance new events and new architecture into experience through what you are doing. And then, as with all of this, it takes time to calibrate and get to be good at making something happen. Like when you're playing, when you're a musician and you're like, I'm trying to hit this note, like wrong note. I meant that note, all right, and then you do it, it's the right note. So what you're doing with these dances is calibrating and learning how to improve your body, how to connect to the architecture of time. And then please know that this is why we always do a Merkaba around these explorations so that you have the opportunity to learn. And I also joke about like if you're in a gym learning for acrobatics or whatever, there's a puffy mat. Like if you fall on your ass, you will not break something. You will just fall on the puffy mat. So we always put up a Merkaba around flying rainbow lasagna time acrobatics so that way, what if you're distracted or you do something weird or it doesn't come out the way that you thought that it would? You're just going to fall on your ass. You're not going to totally die or fracture reality or otherwise fall off the face of the planet. And you can make it better the next time you do the dance. So, okay, I'm sure that there are very many questions. I didn't get through all of my notes. Okay, but Mary Ellen's is very helpful and a lot more detail. Good. Happy that that helped you out. And Joyce says, Professor, you are a fabulous being. Thank you very much. Says, I'm grateful to know you. Thank you for all you do and for being you. Love to Cheeky too. You're so welcome. Thank you for that recognition. I will tell you, I love being Flying Rainbow Lasagna. I think it is so much fun and so awesome and so uplifting. When I first came here as Aurora, I faced a lot of rejection. A lot of people who like didn't get me, who didn't know what I was doing, who didn't want to know what I was doing, who thought I was bizarre or otherwise inappropriate. And it's taken a long time for me to find like the good people, the best humans on the planet who can even comprehend or know what I'm doing, but also like, I'm so joyous in what I do. I'm like, the world is garbage. I need to go dance like a flying rainbow lasagna. Or like, I'm talking with someone on the phone. I'm like, I know this is a very screwed up situation. We need to go dance like a flying rainbow lasagna. Put down the phone, dance like a lasagna. Like, I love being able to do this. So it is, it's more than just a tool to fix things. It is a paintbrush of reality, but it feels really good to know that when the world is so supremely effed up, there is something good that I can do in response to it. I do the lasagna every day that I'm physically capable of it. But please know, like sometimes my life is very busy or very crazy. Like sometimes I might just have 5 minutes to lasagna. But also please know that I'm metabolically lasagnaing all the time. I already described that. And much like when you walk on a treadmill, like you're running or you're walking or whatever, like you get all excited and your metabolism gets faster. But then even when you get off the treadmill and you just sit on the couch, you have raised your resting metabolism. When you lasagna, like if you're going to lasagna with me and we're going to go out there and we're going to do some lasagna for whatever, 45 minutes, then afterwards, you are still going to be at those lasagna reverberative levels, even though you come back to your daily activities, do whatever, answer emails, do the dishes, pick up your kids from school, do all of those things. You are still lasagnaing even as you go through time and connect with your community. And that's the essence of what we are doing here. So I tell you to caution against escapism. I caution against clank like metal spaceship, fly away from garbage. And I'm like, no, how is this different from what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is? Flying Rainbow Lasagna is, first of all, non-technological. It is a total engagement with the fabric of reality. And although you might disengage from five senses reality and from your regular mundane existence and all the chores that you have to do, you're still very much connected to reality, more so than ever. When you do flying rainbow lasagna, it is not out of body experience. It is in body experience. And in fact, when I do lasagna, I really am feeling my blood glucose, my mitochondria, my sebaceous glands, I feel everything in my body. I feel my physical body. I feel my light body. I feel my time body. So this is not in any way denying or escapism from the cellular body. It is full inhabitation of and celebration of your cellular body. And lasagna is inherently a cellular activity. Like it's an energy activity because we're doing this oscillation with our energy field in hyperspace, but also it is a cellular activity. And also there's no way for anyone else to define your experience. So they can't be like, you're late, you're lasagna, you should have lasagnaed 5 minutes ago. You can't do that. Or for someone else to say, whatever, you have a scar here, you should have lasagnaed that scar away as if it never existed. Like, these things will happen, but you can't schedule them. So I have different scars on my body that have transcended or that have disappeared or smoothed over. And I have lots of scars in my brain where I've done that too. Please know, like, these things are possible, but we can't schedule them. And also, not all of them are demonstrable. Please recognize that some of this is about your private or individual relationship with the cosmic of reality. Like, I talk about lasagna as being like cosmic lovemaking, and I was very reticent to put it on the screen in any way because I do not do like sex tapes with the fabric of reality. Like, that's not my thing at all. So it took a lot for me to be able to show other people what I'm doing. Ideally, your lasagna dance is about you and time, you and reality, you and the abstraction of pure light, you and the abstraction of divinity. It's not about how you look at all or how other people see you. And that's very important because all of these earth dances that are about like a ballerina or doing the cha-cha, these are all like how other people look at you, but only when you do flying rainbow lasagna. You don't have to care if your outfit doesn't look good. You don't have to care if your stomach looks fat. You don't have to care about anything. Did you wash your feet today? You don't have to care about that. And also, you're not doing a dance to be attractive to the opposite sex or anything like that. You're literally like a wild animal, and you are feral and primal, and you're flying through these colorful swirls of energy, and like, you don't live according to regular beauty standards when you're in those moments. So you can drop all self-consciousness, and you can drop the other people's impositions upon you. Sometimes when I'm doing the dance and warming everyone up on Tuesdays, I joke about like, what would the neighbors think? What would the homeowners association think? What would the parents and teachers association think? Like, they would all judge you, throw them out the window. All of that diminishes the dance. And it's not why we do the dance. And I've never done the dance like at a disco. Like, I wouldn't. I would do this dance like in a redwood forest or like out here in my garden. Like, it's not really for a disco or a festival. Pedro says, I made a connection between the Mandela effect and the population decline. What if key people are being eliminated or deviated from their destiny? And that affects the details we see as Mandela effects. Example, a writer or someone related to the writer is removed from his failed work. And now instead of Luke, I am your father, we have no, I am your father. Okay, Pedro, I think that that is fascinating, and I will give you that cognitive framework if we can separate the discussion about Mandela effect from stuff that is just edited videos on YouTube, because some stuff is real Mandela effect, but some stuff is people are remembering something, a clip or music or something like that, and then they look for the supportive evidence on YouTube. And you guys just have to understand that everything on YouTube has been sanitized for your protection. So if the powers that were want you to think that the movie always said, no, I am your father, they will just put up all of those clips and take down every other clip, unless you happen to have some VHS recording where he says, Luke, I am your father. I remember him saying, Luke, I am your father. And I also remember the Bernstein Bears, not Berenstain. And I don't think that there really even was a different timeline where there were Berenstain Bears. I think there were a lot of modern videos that were made where someone said, oh, it's not Bernstein, it's Berenstain. And if you do that to enough people, they believe it. And if you have a strong enough belief, then the people will emanate that outward. And you can even have some retrocausality of the writing of reality from people's flawed remembrances. So I stopped connecting with the Mandela effect community because they got too annoying to me of being like, oh, like the toucan Sam on Fruit Loops used to have purple, orange, green stripes, and now he's got yellow stripes. Like some of this seemed not truthful, not testable, and not something that is helping. But there are real Mandela effects, and I think I've spoken about some of the ones that I will validate for people. So there are Mandela effect and time distortion and timeline bleed through is a real phenomenon that I wish we could be having a more, I want to say sober, but sober is not the word, but gives the connotation of like gravitas and sensibility, as opposed to the way that Mandela effect is being mostly talked about as pop culture clickbait and other things that aren't helpful. So I'm not saying you are. This is my cultural, what is it called? Critique of the things that are going on right now, but I hope it doesn't sound accusatory towards you. So back to your more interesting assertion, the idea that what if key people are being eliminated or deviated from their destiny, and then they are a Quasimodo or a partially mutated version of self, and there are things that are loose ends, like things that they should have done but they didn't do, or should have said or experienced they never got to say or experience. We would experience the empty holes in reality. Like if someone was brought down to 50% of who they are, we would experience holes in reality. Like, where's this 50% that is supposed to be here? That guy never made it. And like, this is apt. I don't know if I would call it Mandela effect, but I would say like, maybe we just have to figure out good ways of talking about this, good languaging. There are many people right now who are amputated versions of themselves, not full versions of themselves. And the injections and mRNA distortions have created additional groupings of the population who are not becoming their truest self. Some of it is they're not living their life to the fullest, to their levels of self-expression. Some of them have had their soul disconnected from their divine connection, and they're not seeing and feeling and hearing their innate, like their spirit and their higher sense. Some of them, people who got injected, were supposed to be parents and now they're sterilized. And that's a big thing. If you're like, the 50% of you that got amputated was supposed to be your kids, and your kids aren't here, and you're not who you're supposed to be. So we are experiencing, beyond Mandela effect and other forms of time distortion now, a lot of diminishment in the expression of the true nature of time. And I think my face says it all, but I'll try to decode this for you. It's so disappointing. It is, life is supposed to be an amazing adventure, and the Sudoku patterns of how events tie together is supposed to give the experiencer, like you and me, a gut punch of the profundity of what is happening. You're supposed to look around and be like, that made that, made that, made that, made that, made that, made that. Wow, that is amazing. Like you should feel like Kachanka. And instead, what we are seeing is a blithe, surface level description of reality, where things like, a poorly written movie, like it ain't Shakespeare, like it kind of hangs together and things kind of make sense, but it doesn't really make sense. And then at the end of the movie or the end of the book, you just kind of forget about it. That's sad. That's not the way our world is really supposed to be at all. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything over here. Okay, good. I think I got to almost everything. Good. There's one more thing right down here. Oh, and Pedro also says it's like a butterfly effect. Absolutely. In fact, I think the best way to be able to say it without using loose language is to say that our lives are all intertwined on the level of time in a way that the intellectual, cognitive, analytical daily awareness can barely perceive of or deal with. The multidimensional awareness can deal with this very, very well. That's why for flying rainbow lasagna and some of these other higher, I want to say hallucinatory, but like the things that people do when they are tripping in hallucinations, these type of activities must be post-rational beyond the intellect in order to be able to even embody and do those things. And I'm distracted because I'm looking at what I want to emphasize before I do any more. Okay, so just if emphasis on flying rainbow lasagna, it is a thought that has never been thought before. My contribution to the fabric of reality. You have all of these things that are interwoven causality structures, and this happens because of this. And then you have me, Aurora, in this moment in 2001, where there was a great urgency. Basically the cosmic toilet is going to get flushed and everything is going to go down unless something changes. And what I did was I thought a new thought. And from that moment, that was like the seed crystal in a super saturated solution that caused all of these other event structures to coalesce or catalyze around that moment. When I flying rainbow lasagna, it was profound and significant for me, but it also meant a lot of things could happen for you. So like for me, it is profound. I didn't die. I stayed alive. I had brain damage, but I walk and talk and do everything. That's significant, but it's more than just one person. If it was just one person, that would be enough. But it's also flying rainbow lasagna. What if you take that concept and template and then you apply it to your own life? What if applied to humanity? What if applied to the planet? And the lighting is finally perfect, applied to the planet, and you can finally see that painting. That's what that is. In that painting, we have Earth with her ordinarily toroidal magnetosphere in conjunction with the sun and other larger light energies. The Earth becomes the flying rainbow lasagna. What if I thought a thought for me that was like, oh, I don't have to die and I don't have to have brain damage and I can have a wonderful, expansive, adventurous life? What if your planet thinks a thought like this? Oh, I don't have to die in a nuclear conflagration. Oh, I don't have to have whatever, rivers of blood or lava. How about I don't have to have like stupid petroleum microplastics in my atmosphere or whatever gross stuff is floating around. I can have a different experience. Maybe so. May all of the things that I broke the ground for or initiated in my own life through flying rainbow lasagna, may it become possible or analogous in your own life. That's everything of why I came here. So I came here in order to say, like, as Aurora, 25 years or so ago, I came here in order to say, hey, I invented this flying rainbow lasagna. I did this thing, but it wasn't just like saying, I did a marathon or I did a thing. It was saying it is available to you too. And it is totally your choice about whether you internalize it. Now, of course, 20 or 25 years ago, or whatever, like the world was different and people had more time. If you wanted to internalize and accept the lasagna, I want to say accept the lasagna as your Lord and Savior, but I don't. Like, if you want to accept the lasagna or celebrate it or internalize it and make it a part of your path, you can do it. And of course, 25 years ago, if you had started back then, like at this point, you would be a black belt and you would be very, very well situated. But it's very challenging for someone who's just hearing about this information today to start painting your painting today and have it look good. You would have to accelerate a lot. To finish my sentence, we are already very, very close to the finish line. So you would have to train for the marathon, get your shoes on, and run like 25 miles in a day. It's a lot to try to do that. But I don't know if it's possible. But, with flying rainbow lasagna, a lot of things that are seemingly not possible or very unlikely become possible. And so let me just say, it's not something that I expect people to accomplish in one day. Like learning to play the piano, it really is a lifetime. And even for me, the creator of Flying Rainbow Lasagna, I am still learning about it. I don't pretend that I have unlocked all the secrets of the lasagna or master is better. I don't feel that I have mastered it fully. I feel like just like anything good, when you're a good artist or a good musician, there's plenty for me to still explore. Like, I don't feel like I've mastered the piano. I'm not bored. I wake up every morning and I'm like, oh, my piano. I want to play something new. Every day I'm like, oh, lasagna. I can't wait to lasagna. And, I am Aurora on the higher dimensional levels, going from star system to star system. And that's a big part of, like, that's just normal for me. But that plus lasagna means there's a whole new vista or a whole extra dimension that is now open to me. I haven't used this in this teaching cycle yet, but what cube is to tesseract, Taurus is to flying rainbow lasagna. This is math talk for what happens when you add an additional dimension. So for me, I've already been exploring dimensionality, moving on the stellar network, going from star system to star system, but I have not yet explored that parameter or paradigm when you add lasagna to it. All of these things that I got good at and have already been doing, now I can add lasagna to them. And that's the essence of lasagna. It's not a negation of everything that has come beforehand or all these other cosmic laws. It holds all of those cosmic laws in respect, and then it adds an additional thing on top of all of those cosmic laws. So all of this is still relevant. All of these investments still relevant, still good. The cosmic infrastructure is still viable. Don't throw it in the bin. It can be used, repurposed, salvaged, healed, fixed, restored. Do the flying rainbow lasagna on top of that structure. So that is what I did with this body. The body didn't die. I didn't throw the body out the window and be like, let's start with a new lasagna, blank canvas. I'm like, no, we're going to keep going with this body. It's fixer upper, it's DIY. And through Flying Rainbow Lasagna, over the course of many, many years, I am going to transcend injuries, create new energy patterns, and create new patterns in time. And then I'm even going to keep going from there. So please know, like, even just redefining what is possible in the physical sense is only the beginning. Then we get, like, in the physical, redefining what it is to have a physical body. Then we go from there. And some of that stuff involves how we work with others. Because first you're like, oh, I redefine who I am as an individual and how my body metabolism works and how I connect to light and how I do these different things. But then that's like saying, okay, I'm a good guitar player. But you know what? You need drums. You need a singer. You need a band. So you master your metabolism. You learn how to lasagna. You learn how to do these different hyperspace acrobatics, but then also like connect with others. That's a big part of it too. So the reason why I'm here, even though it's not really a reason, but what motivates me to be here is to invite people to come on the marathon. You're like, Aurora, there's another marathon. Like, we just ran a marathon. I'm like, I know. When you finish this marathon, then you start a new marathon that is actually the cool, fun marathon that is the universal, larger flying rainbow lasagna marathon. So sorry if I didn't mean to confuse you by doing that, but let's say that is meta liberation. The larger marathon is being free in your pure consciousness to go wherever you want to go in freedom. And when you have flying rainbow lasagna, it's not just like a car to propel you to go someplace. It's also this very critical tool for fine tuning where you can erase the stuff that's bad and write a perfect story of the stuff that is good. And then really the journey continues onward. The journey does not stop. Okay, I have so many other things to talk about because there's oh my goodness, there's like the the concept of becoming your adult winged form, turning into a butterfly. Sorry, my voice is so tired here. So all of these paintings that I make where you see there's a human figure and then these different wings that are around it. It's literally how you become your adult form, how you become a mature and responsible experiencer of time. And that is like how you fly through time and how you become effective. You become a multidimensional self. You become your multidimensional self. Okay, wait, I'll just do a few more little things because I have everything like highlighted and color coded, blah, blah, blah. I already got that one. I already got that one. And okay, so just the big one that I'll end on is changing your mental state has a huge impact on what genes are expressed. So inside of you, you have all these potentials, and through flying your lasagna, you can even write new potentials, but really it is your mental state. And we could say mental slash emotional state that determines which genes are being expressed. And there's also a big difference between knowing that you have a capacity and really feeling it. Like I know that I can write a song, but sometimes I do not feel it. Sometimes I feel like, no, like I'm angry, agitated, and depressed. I don't feel like writing a song. But sometimes I feel it and I'm like, oh, I feel inspired. I am ready to write a song. So in knowing that you have a capacity and knowing that you have a genetic potential is different and separate from actually embodying it and actually experiencing it. So please know that you have to optimize your environment in order to do this. So much of DNA as a bridge of light or an aspect of your light body, all this beautiful light flowing in here right now, has to do with the world around you. So some things emanate and bubble up from within, but a lot of your DNA is a response to that is what is around you. And that should be celebrated. Like when a seed grows in the soil, like the seed and the soil, like they're part of the same thing together. They have to work together. So you are a part of time. You are not separate from time. And your emotional state, mental framework, and expectation of what is possible in the world is intimately tied to the fabric of time. Just like a seed is tied to the soil, there's not a way for you to disentangle yourself from there. And everything about the Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance is like to more greatly bring up that relationship between yourself and time. And in the end, like you're not dancing for a partner at the discotheque to, like John Travolta or something like that. You're dancing for time. And looking beautiful means conforming to the right time patterns or moving your body through time in the right way and aligning with the right events and emitting the correct event structures. So pathogenic thought structures in your world are about thinking about things that you don't want to have happen. Like, oh, I hope the world doesn't blow up, or I hope your dog isn't dead in a ditch somewhere. Like, those are both things we don't want to have happen. Don't externalize that from your internal state. Now we get to free will beyond predetermination and claiming responsibility for defining my internal state. And then as I change or refine my internal state, emitting that into the world around me, which is pretty much creating the world with my expectations, my thoughts, and my behavior. And this is slightly different than the garden variety way of externalizing your internal expectation, which is through distortions, ignorance, haphazardness, and irresponsibility. Like hither thither, throwing things out the window, just randomly creating things like splashing paint all over. Splashing paint all over is how the human mind has been creating the world, and it shows. The world is very splashy, messed up. Okay. But now what you are doing with Flying Rainbow Lasagna is very calibrated, very intentional, and very selective in what you are erasing or uncreating and what you are consciously creating. That's it. That's it. We're all tired. We're tired. We're hungry. We need cookies. We might need to take our dogs for a walk. I hope that your brains have been consistently liquefied. Watch my whiteboards on this particular lesson because I do very well with being able to show you exactly how DNA is shaped and what your DNA exactly is doing in the process of supercoiling and flying rainbow lasagnaing. and please know that this is training for your intellectual awareness. And this is like giving you the recipe, but in the end, you have to get a feel for it. Like, what does the dough feel like when you knead the dough? What does the music feel like when you're in the groove? And what does it feel like when you dance effectively as a flagon of lasagna? Okay, fantastic. I always feel like I could have said so much more. Like, really, like I only got to like 3 pages of my notes and I have 10 things printed out. And I always have so many things that I want to say. So let me leave it at that. Like, I always feel like I haven't said and done enough, but there's always more to be able to talk about. And we don't learn to be a perfect virtuoso in one day. It's not loving. It's not expected of you. So file everything away. Please scoop up your brains that have liquefied and put them back into your ears, and then go and do something that is fun and life affirmative. Good. Let me see what people are saying over here. Pedro says, last week I missed posting it, so love the lasagna. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a long-term student here, Pedro, and for all of your contributions. And thank you for the people that are in this class, truly. Thank you for finding my work and for taking what I offer in the tastiness of the lasagna and appreciating it, internalizing it, trying to apply it to your life, and trying to do this thing with the planet and with making our whole entire energy field much more palatable and much more delicious. And, you know, like I told you, like I thought my initial gig would be done in 2003, which we can all laugh about. And I think that the journey from 2003 to now has been extraordinary. I think it's been worth it. And I do see changes in the world. Look at the world and how different it is over these past decades. And I see that the change has accelerated, and that we are at this level of the asymptotic curve, and that it just keeps on accelerating until it's like solid state, pure light, and we keep going in this way. So please know that that is the end goal of this. There is no end. The end is eternal acceleration and an experience that gets continually more satisfying, more vivifying, more fulfilling, more juicy. But people like the edge of the lasagna that's crispy, more crispy with slightly burnt cheese around the side. That's what we're ending on today. You can tell I'm very hungry. Let us go eat good foods. Thank you also sometimes for allowing me some silliness and lightheartedness, because that is also a big part of like what the lasagna taste is like. If you're ever like, what is lasagna really made out of? It is made out of some comedy and humor. Thank you. Love and appreciation, everyone. Thank you so much.